Jaws is a 1975 American thriller film directed by Steven Spielberg and based on the 1974 novel by Peter Benchley. In the film, a man-eating great white shark attacks beachgoers at a summer resort town, prompting police chief Martin Brody to hunt it with the help of a marine biologist and a professional shark hunter. This movie is an absolute classic, as well as probably being the best movie Spielberg ever directed. Welcome to the channel. If you've never been here before, this is Movie Readings, where I take entire Hollywood scripts and read them from start to finish right here on YouTube. Sometimes these take hours to make, so it could really help me out if you would like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below with what you would like the next movie reading to be. Over black, sounds of inner spaces rushing forward. Then, a splinter of blue light in the center of the picture. It breaks wide, showing the top and bottom, a silhouetted curtain of razor-sharp teeth, suggesting that we are inside of a tremendous gullet, looking out at the onrushing undersea world at night. We hear a symphony of underwater sounds, landslide, metabolic sounds, the rare and secret noises that certain undersea species share with each other. We cut to a lighthouse at night. Caught in its blinding flash, the light moves on, fingering the fog. A lone buoy dongs somewhere out at sea. The quaint little resort town is quiet in the middle of the night. A ground fog rounds a corner and begins spreading toward us. It fills over sidewalks and streets like some biblical plague. It is a pleasant, moonlit, windless night in mid-June. We see a long, straight stretch of white beach. Behind the low dunes are the dark shapes of large, expensive houses. The fog that has reached Amity proper is seen only as a low-hanging cloud that is pushing in from the sea. We hear a number of voices singing. It sounds like an Eastern university's alma mater. A bonfire is blazing at the beach. Gathering around it, about a dozen young women and men who are merrily trading fight songs from their respective universities. Two young people break away from the circle, Chrissy, almost pulling a drunk and disorderly Tom Cassidy behind her. Cassidy makes a clumsy try at kissing Christina, but she laughs and ducks away. The fire now, 100 yards in the background, silhouettes Chrissy running up a steep dune. Once there, she pauses to look at the ocean that we can only hear. Cassidy plods up the dune behind her, grossly out of shape. Chrissy runs down a few steps, leaving Tom Cassidy reeling on the summit. Chrissy's dress, bra, and panties fly toward Tom, who can't make a fist to catch them. The dress drapes over one half his head. Soggily aroused, Cassidy struggles to get his shoes off. But Chrissy is already in full flight toward the shore. In she goes, a delicate splash, surfacing in a cold ocean that is unusually placid. Chrissy pulls with her arms, drawing herself into deeper water. That's when we see it. A gentle bulge in the water. A ripple that passes her a dozen feet away. A wave of pressure lifts her up and eases her down again. Her face shows the beginning of fear. Maybe it's Tom. She smiles and looks around him. Then her eyes go to the beach, where Tom, too drunk to stand, one pant leg off, is struggling with his other shoe. Chrissy turns and starts for shore. Her expression freezes. The water lump is racing for her. It bolts her upright, out of the water to her hips, and then slams her hard, whipping her in an upward arc of 8 feet before she is jerked down to her open mouth. Another jolt to her floating hair. One hand claws the air, fingers trying to breathe. Then it too is sucked below in a final and terrible jerking motion, holding on to the churning froth of a baby whirlpool until we are sure it is over. Cassidy, in his undershorts, laughing and turning in slow stoned circles, a prisoner in his orange windbreaker that seems to have him in a full Nelson. He stumbles to his knees. An alarm clock radio, giving weather bulletins. Marina weather, westerly winds, light chop, etc. A pair of bumps under the bedsheets. There's a rustling, and 2 stockinged feet swing up and settle heavily on the floor. We follow them as they pad along from hardwood floor to bathroom tile. A light pops on, and the feet arrive at a scale. Board it. In a blur, it goes to 191. Then, if by magic, the numbers float back to 160. Martin Brodie, at 42, stands rigid, lifting himself from the sink countertop with both hands. Satisfied, he turns toward the mirror, squinting in the light, measuring himself up and down. Advancing waistline, receding hairline, gray around the ears. Martin Brodie makes another silent promise to get his act together. Tomorrow. He reaches for the sliding mirror and opens the medicine cabinet. There's a travel brochure of Arizona attached to the shelf. Brodie shakes his head and removes it. He closes the mirror, which now reflects his wife, Ellen Brodie, pert and poised off to one side. "Martin, aren't you tired of Maine lobster, Long Island duckling, and Ipswich clams? Just once, couldn't we go for a Big Mac at the bottom of the Grand Canyon this summer? Look at me, I'm not even awake. You've had no time off in 2 years, Martin. Living here is time off." Brodie opens the shower door to turn on the water. Ellen has scotch-taped a travel folder for exotic Mazatlan, Mexico, on the showerhead. Martin is getting dressed after his shower. Ellen stands by the curtained window. "Larry Vaughn says we'll pull a record season. Ellen, we're collecting high enough rentals to cover the mortgage payments for all 3 of our beachfront investments. I know where we can invest in an Indian Chief motorhome for the whole of August, drop it off in Aspen, Colorado, and jet back to Boston by Labor Day." Ellen pulls from behind her 3 brochures of travel home rentals. Look, Ellie, let's just..." She completes the sentence. "Play it by ear?" Ellen turns to open the curtains. Sunlight and ocean sparkle pour in. A glorious view. Ellen, false happiness. Another shitty day in paradise. The sunlight catches Brodie's police chief badge as he slips on his shirt, and we discover why he can't go anywhere. Brodie, ripping open a 25-pound bag of kennel ration, as 5 hungry mutts somersault around his feet. The telephone rings, and Brodie one-hands it as he attempts to sew all 5 doggy bowls with missed double helpings. "Morning, Hendricks. What's what?" He listens, sours, and takes a breath. "First goddamn weekend of the summer. Great start. No, take him back to the beach. Maybe she washed in." Martin Brodie's country squire police wagon rushes past, taking the views to an enormous billboard depicting a typical summer day in Amity. A beautiful model splashes in the golden surf, languishing in a solar cane sun. "Amity welcomes you" is written above her flailing arms. 3 small figures in the landscape walking the beach. The surf is rough, and there is sea-floor debris strewn about from the receding tile. Deputy Hendricks is searching the shore about 100 yards downwind. Meanwhile, Brodie in his casual police attire and Tom Cassidy, still in the clothing we saw him in last night, poke around the smoking ashes of the bonfire. Brodie fingers the missing girl's shoes, purse, and clothes. In the daylight, Cassidy looks like a junior in high school and misconducts himself, wavering between inflated maturity and tear-blown adolescence. "Christine what? Worthington? No one ever died on me before." "You picked her up on the ferry?" "I didn't know her." "And nobody else saw her in the water?" "Somebody could've, because I was sort of passed out." "Sounds to me like maybe she ran out on you." "Oh, no, sir. I've never had a woman do that. I'm sure she drowned." A shrill whistle makes them turn. Hendricks is 50 yards away on his knees. He blows again. A feeble report this time. "We may know in a minute." Brodee runs toward Hendricks. Cassidy hesitates and then follows with, pathetically, "You can't make me look!" A skein of seaweed garnishing the base of this isolated dune. The booming waves and fizzing surf make dialogue inaudible. Deputy Hendricks on hands and knees, looking white as a sheet. Brodee tells Cassidy to wait at the foot of the dune and ventures up. Hendricks stops him with a wave-off, saying something at the same time. Brodee nods understanding and steps up cautiously and looks down. Whatever he sees has a marked effect on his entire physique. Kicking out with his foot, Brodee sends dozens of angry horseshoe crabs in an escape frenzy, and they boil over the top of the dune and down its slopes. Cassidy takes a few uneasy steps backwards when Brodee waves him over. He shakes his head. An awkward moment. Then Cassidy shuffles forward and up the few remaining feet, his eyes looking everywhere but down. Brodee says something else and Cassidy shakes his head again, eyes out at the sea. Brodee puts his hand gently around the quaking man's shoulder. Nodding, he starts to look down, an inch at a time. He looks. The jolt that assaults Cassidy is not unexpected. He falls backward in a sitting position as though shot. Nods yes, it's her. Brodee turns and slides off the dune, stumbling close. Hear his breathing. He looks around, envisioning the week ahead of him. Brodee walks through the door and enters his office, holding a glass of fizzing Alka-Seltzer. Polly, his 61-year-old secretary, follows close on his heels, with her shorthand pad of messages and reminders. In the outer office, Hendricks and Cassidy slump into chairs, sipping from fizzing Dixie cups. Brodee sits behind the typewriter, only to find that somebody has placed a travel folder to sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, between the rolls of his Smith Corona. He sighs and replaces the colorful brochure with the grim accident report. As he types, Polly reads his calendar to him, undaunted by Brodee's heavy malaise. "This is in no order of importance, Chief. There's a meeting on Amity Town Council on Aging this Monday night. Benton Court Hall. The fire inspector wants you to go over the fireworks site with him before he catches the 1 o'clock ferry. Mainly, you have a batch of calls about that new karate school." Brodee has just typed the girl's name. He skips the space for cause of death, and just under it types next of kin information he has collected from her wallet. "Searles Rent-A-Bike, the Rainy Ale, Tisbury's Hardware. They say it's those 9-year-olds from the school practicing karate on all those nice picket fences." The phone rings and Polly picks it up. "It's the coroner. Somebody pass away in the night?" Brodee nestles the phone between ear and collar, listening, as he turns to the typewriter. Jesus Santos! Cause of death line rolls into place. The hammers punch out, "Shark attack." Brodee leans forward, staring at what he just wrote. Polly cocks her head and removes the phone from his ear. "What's the matter?" Brodee takes a breath. A new resolve comes over him. "Polly, I want to know what water recreation the Island Fathers have on for today." "Right this minute?" Brodee gets up and moves hastily toward the door. Cassidy and Hendricks look up as Brodee enters. "Where'd you hide the beach closed signs?" "We never had any. What's the problem?" A local merchant comes through the door. "Glad I caught you. There's a city truck with New Hampshire plates parked right in front of my—" Brodee pushes past him and out the door. In the busy center of a town preparing for the big 4th of July weekend, Brodee wends his way around sidewalk activity, purpose and haste in each stride. As he turns a corner, a little man in a white schmuck emerges from the funeral parlor. This is Carl Santos, Amity's part-time coroner. Santos looks both ways before crossing Colonial Drive. Brodee passes Kiesel's bicycle rental, navigating an awkward course through an odd assortment of Schwinns that line the sidewalk in front of a demolished white picket fence. Kiesel intercepts Brodie on the run. 8 to 10 years old. Average size, about 5'4". Otherwise, the overhand chops would be higher up on the fences. And I have a pretty good damn idea who 2 of the little bastards are. Brodie out walking him. Call me later in the afternoon, Harry. Santos emerges with Ben Meadows, the stylish late 30s editor of the Amity Gazette. Together they cut a beeline for the other side of the street. Past taverns and chowder shacks, past Bleacher Construction and July 4th posters, Brodie enters Linwood's Hardware and Sporting Goods, so overstocked that beach umbrellas, aluminum deck chairs, and rainbow beach towels splash a surplus of color from the display window to the sidewalk. The store proprietor is busy at work on an inventory list with a mainland delivery man. Stuff's no good to me in August. When the pilgrims come in June, to Brodie, go on and help yourself to whatever you need, Chief. Can you work the register? Brodie emerges with enough poster board, wooden stakes, nails, paint, and brushes to close every beach on the island. He starts back the way he came when Hendricks shoots up the street in a patrol jeep. He stops fast enough to call attention and leans out the window. Hendricks has fully read the report now. I sent Sammy out ahead of me to take the South Chop Beach until I can make up the signs. Let Polly do the printing. There's a scout troop in Avril Bay doing the mile swim for their merit badges. I couldn't call them in. There's no phones out there. Oh, brother, give me the keys, Lenny. Brodie leaps behind the wheel as Hendricks steps out. A secretary at Vaughn's Realty is removing 4 8x10 glossies of beachfront houses from the display window, revealing Larry Vaughn, the mayor of Amity, exchanging anxieties with Ben Meadows and Coroner Santos and 2 other city selectmen. They come out in a group, reach the sunlight, and squint down the street as Brodie careens around the corner and out of sight. Deputy Hendricks, laden with his arts and crafts, passes them on the street front. What do you got there, Lenny? We got a shark attack at South Chop this morning, Mayor. Fatal. Gotta batten down the beach. Vaughn and the group exchange horrified looks, but we get the impression it is not in response to the shark attack news. Who have you told this to, Lenny? I just found out about it, but there's a bunch of Boy Scouts in the water a couple of miles down the coast from where we found the girl. Avril Bay, thereabouts. Chief went to dry them off. Vaughn to Meadows. Take my car, okay? You can come with us, Lenny. I've got all the signs here. Come on, it'll give us time to think about what they're going to say. They all crowd into a Cadillac Eldorado with Vaughn Realty signs on the doors. A flotilla of 20 exhausted Boy Scouts rounds a life buoy that marks the quarter mile. A rowboat with a scoutmaster and a bullhorn keeps pace. On the beach, 2 older Sea Scouts time the event with stopwatches, and a couple of dozen parents looking on, shading their eyes. Brodie's Jeep pulls up in the background and stops. He gets up and starts down to the breakwater when the mayor's Cadillac pulls up and skids to a stop. Brodie pauses momentarily as Mayor Vaughn emerges, trying to effect an easygoing appearance. Reaching Brodie, he slips an arm around his shoulder, trying to slow him as Brodie leads the gang toward the breakwater and the slogging scouts. Where are you going to get the authority to close the beaches? Brodie stops. He sees the pitiful Hendricks standing by the car with the signboard material. Brodie begins to slow burn. Are you asking me as the mayor, or as a real estate broker? Or out of friendly interest, or what, Larry? I just want you to be aware of what you're going to do before you tinker with the lifeblood of all those sage and discriminating souls who elected you. Next week's the goddamn 4th of July. We've got a couple thousand summer people coming over here who will gladly use the Cape Cod beaches if they can't use ours. So what you're suggesting is we lay out a smorgasbord for the sharks. All you can eat for the price of a weekend on Amity Island. We're not even sure it was a shark. What else could do that? Boat propeller? To Coroner Santos. Possibly, yes. Swims way out at night? Fishing boat comes along? Brody looking at both of them. What is this? We've never had shark trouble here, Martin. They don't come in close. No reefs or fish processing plants, slaughterhouses, nothing to keep it interested. You print whatever you want. Martin, sharks are like axe murderers. People react to them with their guts. Brody looks toward the open water. The Boy Scouts have made a turn and are passing the lifebuoy marked 3/4 mile point. Whatever was out there is miles to sea by now. Sharks don't have swim bladders like most fish. They have to keep moving or they drown. Don't you know anything about them? I don't go around the water much. It's 1 chance in a million this'll happen again. He points. Look at that, safe and sound. The Boy Scouts are emerging exhausted. Some flop down on their backs, happy it is over. Brody considers this. Had you yelled, "Shark!" those Cub Scouts would have broken the freestyle record for the 100-meter. And then busted our backs with word of mouth. If that's the test case for your 1,000,000-to-1 shot, I'm glad I lost. Vaughn feels secure that Brody will not act in haste. He puts a hand on his shoulder, turns and walks him toward the cars. Listen, Chief, the funniest thing, the white picket fence around my realty office. Rising like Neptune from out of the deep, Quint walks the sidewalk in the pool of his own shadow. He is a sleek and sinewy specimen, inches over 6 feet, and with a face making it hard to determine where the scars leave off and the wrinkles begin, though he is no older than 50. Quint seems to be heading for the local tavern, when a crunch of seafaring fishermen pour out, forming an impenetrable knot around the sidewalk in front of them. One of them sees Quint, who approaches with no intention of slowing down. The 7 fishermen never give it a second thought. They part like the Red Sea, clearing a beeline trail to the bar doors. Quint bursts through their obliging ranks and turns into the music store. The tiny bell jingles daintily. 2 of the Portuguese fishermen spit 3 times, taking no chances. Quint brushes against the counter. The shopkeeper is helping a 10-year-old boy fix a new reed to his clarinet. The little boy produces a mellow, low tone, then wonderingly rides the scale. With little or no effort, Quint's gnarled hand floats up and drops like a sledge on the service bell. The shopkeeper's eyes pop up, and the kid hits a bad note and squeaks. Quint forced politeness. 4 spools number 12 piano wire. Catch any monsters lately, Mr. Quint? Quint's eyes never leave the little boy. He's drilling him with a sidelong whammy. The boy feels Quint nailing him, and a ragged assortment of squeaks, blurps, and missed notes override the sounds of the shopkeeper unspooling the piano wire. Inside of Brody's study at home is a riffly blur. Color alternating, black and white. The dizziness stops on a book page showing a black and white rendering of 8 species of shark. The banner at the top of the page reads, "The known and reputed man-eaters." The riffling begins again, stops on a grisly photograph of scar tissue on 6 former shark victims. Riffling, stop. Photography of 5 ichthyologists posing on wooden stools, framed by the enormous jaws of a prehistoric shark, from the family Carcharodon charcharius. Brody's reading glasses reflect a stack of 12 library books, all on the subject of sharks and shark attacks. The door opens and Ellen enters quietly, in respect for Brody's mood. "Can you stand something to eat?" "Love a cup of tea, with lemon." Ellen walks past Brody to the window and looks out the window, which overlooks the South Bay. It is the hour of dusk. "Mikey loves his birthday present." "Where is he?" Ellen with a slight laugh. "He's sitting in it." Brody gets up concerned and joins her at the window. "Honey, he has it tied up to the jetty with a double knot." From Brody's point of view, Michael is sitting in a boat. Two of his young school chums are in the water, swimming around it. Brody opens the window and calls down, "Son, out of the water, now!" "My boat's neat, Dad." Brody turning to Ellen. "Tell him I want him out of the ocean." "It's 3 feet deep, Martin. You said that shark was halfway back to Florida." Brody is angry now. "Michael, come inside the house." "It's his birthday tomorrow." "I told him not to go out until he memorized the handbook, safety regulations, and—" Ellen's eyes drift down to the open book. One large text is open to a page of illustrations. Among them is the famous painting The Gulf Stream, which depicts a black fisherman in a small dinghy much like Michael's, being assaulted by the pressing jaws of 3 man-eaters. Startled, Ellen closes the book, opens the window, and sticks her head out. "You heard your father. Out now!" A Jelly Bowl woman visitor to Amity's beaches plunges headlong into the white foam. There's enough of her stuffed into one-piece bathing suit to satiate the appetite of a shark for weeks. Remarkably buoyant, she chops at the water, revealing other cheerful Sunday bathers trying to enjoy the last uncluttered weekend before the holiday crowds. Brody is balefully alert this morning, sitting straight back in his beach chair, coating the swimming areas with careful looks. About 10 other adults and a dozen children attend his casual birthday get-together. "I don't envy you this summer, Chief. Every year the swarms get worse." "I know why there's not a sane Parisian left in Paris from July to September." Brody hears a scream from the water. He cranes his neck past Max's wife in order to see. A young lady is being pulled underwater to her hair. Instantly, she's jerked up again, sitting on her boyfriend's shoulders and laughing hysterically. "What? What? Did you say something?" "No, yeah, I was wondering if it's true. That you sit in your car the whole while over on the mainland ferry?" Brody's son, Michael, along with several other boys, rush headlong into the gentle surf with their inflatable rubber rafts. Another youngster, Alex Kintner, gathers up his day-glow yellow raft, but his mother takes issue, and a tug-of-war ensues. Overlapping dialogue. "What a terrible thing to say. Please let me take my raft, Mom." "Come on, Penny, I'm not ashamed to admit that when I fly, my feet sweat right through my socks." "Let me see your fingertips." He holds them out. "They're beginning to prune. 10 more minutes." The fat woman is going out too far. 15. We stay on the fat woman, almost hypnotically. "I can't believe it. Brody!" Brody, snapping out of it, looks up at the dripping select man. False normalcy. "How's the water?" "Fine. Cold." To Ellen, who walks over and sits next to Brody. "How did you do it, getting him to the beach?" "It's Michael's birthday." "Hope we get this weather next weekend." The fat woman is not where Brody last remembers seeing her. He sort of rises to one knee, his eyes combing the surf. Ellen kissing him on the cheek. "Do you want me to call the boys in?" "Honey, if this worries you." Max bolting down his drink. Does this mortal fear of the water have a clinical name, Martin? Brodie throwing it away. Drowning. The fisheye view of people lying on rafts. From below, we see the outlines of swimmers, arms and legs dangling tantalizingly in the blue water. Traveling this way from raft to raft, there comes a space of open water, followed by a quick view of a single raft. A pair of feet kicking and arms paddling produces bizarre underwater vibrations, louder than human ears would normally perceive. A fat lady floating on her back, wearing pink sunglasses. A black object surfaces next to her. It emerges as a bather in a black bathing cap. Alex is paddling in circles, making motorboat sounds. Two lovers are kissing, drawing each other below the surface. Brodie's son separating from his friends, eating a huge piece of cake and trying to steer with the other hand. A group of kids on rubber rafts begin to water fight, slapping at the ocean with karate-type blows, sending little explosions of water at each other. Then, no more than 10 feet beyond the fighting, a genuine water eruption upstages the child's play. Everyone turns just as the ocean flattens itself out. A pug-faced, oversized 12-year-old named PJ renews the fighting with a genuine karate yell. PJ hits the water, which sprays all over another youngster. Matthew's face dripping with red rivulets. PJ looks down at his hand. The water surrounding all the boys is slick with blood. People begin to congregate around an older gentleman on the beach, definitely a mainlander by his outfit. It came out of the water. Didn't anybody else see it? There's blood! Brodie stands up all the way this time. Parents begin calling, a frantic inventory for lost children up and down the beach. Brodie is on the move, barreling to the shoreline. He kicks up sand, passing Alex's mother, who looks up from her novel annoyed. Brodie at the top of his lungs. Michael! Everybody out of the water! Michael! Other names from hysterical parents as the panic of a yet unseen tragedy rises. Michael appears from the chute of a breaking wave. He's all right, but the wave that curls after him carries the shredded pieces of the day-glow yellow raft. The foam that breaks wide on the sandy beach is tinged with pink. A crowd of men and women in an angry tangle outside of Brodie's office. These are shop owners, real estate brokers, hotel managers, select men of the island. Through the windows, the South Beach High School band is practicing for the 4th of July parade. Brodie and Vaughn exit Brodie's office and enter the fray. I'm glad everyone could make this meeting. Why don't we wander down the hall to my office, where there's room? All follow Brodie and Vaughn. Meadows pushes through the crunch to speak. Don't keep us in suspense, Mayor. What's the verdict? Vaughn cannot bring himself to say it right away. Larry and I have agreed to close all beaches for a limited period of time to give us a chance to contact the Port Authority and the United States Coast Guard out on Montauk. Well, that could take all summer! 24 hours! Brodie turns angry. We never agreed to that. I do a thrifty business here, but I'll not see it flourish at the price of any more lives. 3 reservations cancelled, and I still have August rentals open. So do I, Martha, so do I. They reach Vaughn's office. It is being painted. Newspapers are strewn all over the floor, and paint-spattered tarps over the furniture. Vaughn's secretary still dutifully takes calls. Larry, 2 Newsday reporters and 1 from the New York Times calling every 15 minutes. Good people! Nobody saw a shark! Maybe what they'll print is maybe it was a shark. Oh, wonderful! And what we'll have is maybe a summer. Town'll lose tax revenue. Municipal services'll deteriorate. The people begin to move away. Oh, I don't care. I never raised my kids to be somebody's lunch. We had no way of keeping the lid on what happened yesterday. There were well over 100 bathers on the beach, 3/4 of them from the mainland. Vaughn leads the way down the hall toward the Bureau of Records room. I'm not interested in participating in any cover-up, Mayor. I wouldn't worry too much about that, Max. The president himself couldn't stop the mushrooming at this point. Selectman Denherter almost whispers in Vaughn's ear. But couldn't we just say the kid drowned? Vaughn whispers back. We couldn't even find the little bastard. Vaughn opens the door to the Bureau of Records. About 24 children sit around, twisting multicolored Kleenex into artificial flowers for the big parade. Vaughn turns his face into a condescending grin. Could the big people have a grown-up meeting in here, please, children? Get lost! A voice from behind Vaughn draws him away. It is a small but muscular black man named Salvatore. Mr. Vaughn? He steps out of the shadows, hat in hand. Mr. Quint sent me down from Jacobstown. What for? Well, he out catching them things every day practically. Price is right. He can catch yours here. What's he get? 10,000 and a color TV. Vaughn outraged. How much? 27-inch, a Japanese one. Vaughn studies the little blinking man, ready to laugh. Mr. Quint's services are not required. Thanks. Stopping a secretary. Is there an empty office anywhere in this goddamn building? Weights and measures, nobody ever uses it. Vaughn starts away and the crowd follows. I'd haul it in myself before I'd pay anything to that maniac. You want to hear what he did to 3 friends of mine on a St. Valentine's Day sporting charter? They are halted in their tracks by the grim appearance of Mrs. Kintner and her benign father. She is dressed in church white, with a black armband. Mrs. Kintner never says a word. She just tacked something to the community bulletin board and is walking through the parting crowd. With sympathy, all watch her leave. Then press up to the corkboard. Brodie fights his way through everyone until we're standing over his shoulder, staring at the homemade poster that offers all or a fraction of $3,000 bounty to the man or men who catch and slaughter the shark that savaged Alex M. Kintner Jr. on Sunday, June 29th in the town of Amity. Brodie to Vaughn. Listen, Larry, I'm going to talk to her. This isn't a contest. We want everyone from Boston to Quebec entering. I agree. If she's going to advertise, I wouldn't recommend out-of-city papers. There's enough of us here in Amity could take care of this. Larry, I'm responsible for public safety around here. So I think tomorrow you should go out with whoever and see that they don't get hurt. Nobody sport fishes for shark. No one will listen. Already plans are being discussed. Sides chosen, boats, tackle, and tactics recommended. The din overrules Brodie, who we pull close to, and we cut to a naked 100-watt bulb illuminating the electric grinder, purring in one corner of Quint's chum shed. The slick black carcass of a pilot whale dominates the lighted area. Quint is hacking slabs off the whale with his marine machete as his mate. Salvatore rolls an empty barrel to the grinder. Salvatore, suspicious. Where'd you find this whale, anyway? Way out. Dead as a doornail. How come harpoon holes in him? Quint doesn't reply as he hacks away. The mate rolls away a full barrel. You hardly never use this chummin' for shark. For some kinds. Quint muscles a new slab into the grinder, slowing it to a low growl as it purees the blubber. Go hose the deck. We're chartered for 9 a.m. Salvatore awed, looking at the chum. Think it's one of those they got down there? Quint's grim smile is reply enough. Salvatore, looking worried, indicates some barrels full of whale pulp. Load these on or what? Quint is hacking revenge from the mutilated carcass. He spits away the dripping perspiration. Not required. You heard the man. Answering Salvatore's question. Just a regular charter tomorrow. I'll keep this on ice for a while. Chop, chop, chop. A shovel. Whump, whump. Pounding the sharpened standard into the sand. The sign reads, No swimming or wading. Amity PD. Hendricks and the other deputy are assisting Brody. Silhouettes of townspeople look on like mourners at a funeral. In the background, some workmen are taking down the shutters from a quaint summer cottage. They pause to watch the declining moments of the day. 3 select men also stand watching. One of them seems to be whispering bounty news to 3 youngish men on a nearby dune. The sounds of surf and hammering. We cut to select man Dan Herder and his buddy Charlie, a professional angler. They push a wheelbarrow ahead of them as they near the tumble-down jetty that leads 50 feet out into the black water. Both men scuff along, exhausted. You want to call it a night after here? It's only 2:30. What, are you tired? Yeah, Charlie. I got my second wind 3 nibbles back. Dan Herder hefts a blood-stained laundry bag from the wheelbarrow, revealing about 100 feet of coiled dog chain and a large patched inner tube. Charlie takes out a monster hook, and together they push the wheelbarrow onto the rickety pier that is only about 5 feet across. Dan Herder reaching into the bag. Leg of lamb this time? Screw lamb, let's shoot the sirloin. A hyena laugh. We're blowing half the bounty on bait. The splintered pier sways to and fro as the men reach the end and start to work. Charlie baits the hook with a massive chunk of sirloin, while Dan Herder secures the loose end of the chain to a skinny piling. Charlie then fastens the inner tube to the chain 5 feet from the end of the hook. One more after this, then I'm going home. Set? Dan Herder tugs the chain against the piling to prove that it is. Charlie heaves the bait. Splash. The inner tube follows, and both men eagerly watch as it floats seaward, the chain playing out from the wheelbarrow. The tide is taking it right out. Charlie lights his pipe and sits back against a piling. He turns on his transistor radio and loops one end around a fractured board. Dan Herder paces, bored to death. You do this all the time, right, Charlie? 20 years. I can't believe that people pay money to go fishing. This is really dumb. This isn't even relaxing, it's just boring. The chain in the wheelbarrow suddenly zipping out faster and faster as both men straighten. Dan Herder is goggle-eyed. Hey, what's this? The chain is coming out so fast that it begins to drag the wheelbarrow to the end of the jetty. A section of chain tangles around the handle and flips the entire machine into the air. Both men watch dumbfounded as the inner tube, racing out to sea in a wake of white water, suddenly dips under. Look at him take it! Do I set the goddamn hook? Let's get him! Go, go, go! It is just then that the chain whips taut against the narrow pilings. A close-up of 5 decrepit 2x4 pilings snap with a resounding crack. The end of the jetty is yanked loose. Dan Herder is flipped like a chip over the side and into the cold night water, where he manages to snag hold of a splintered timber. The severed section of jetty, a joined platform of footboards, is being dragged seaward with Charlie sitting dazed on top of it, his lit pipe still going. Charlie, jump! Charlie rolls into the water, sputters, and turns to watch the flotilla of water draw away. Looking seaward. The end of the jetty makes a 180-degree turn and heads back in his direction. Holy Jesus Christ! Dan Herder steps up on the broken-off piling just to be out of the water. Get the hell out, Charlie! Swim! Charlie, inhaling terror, trying to slog to shore. The jetty is getting closer. Suddenly, the chain dragging it through the water is severed, and the charging wood falls behind. An enormous black fin breaks water like a periscope, making course corrections as it comes for Charlie. Dan Herder jumps from piling to piling, almost losing his balance on his way to help Charlie. Charlie has reached the last pylon towards open sea, and his hand clambers for a hold. But the algae is too slippery in his hands, and his fingers keep sliding back. That's when the fin behind him seems to reach up to the sky, and Charlie screams. An explosion of water and bubbles mercifully blot out the image. Ben Gardner, ruddy-faced and ornery, is a fisherman as seaworthy as they come. With his make, Swede, he starts to board the Flicka, a Bertram 28 sports fisherman. Absently, he makes preparations for casting off, his attention focused on surrounding dockside activity and the chaos in the harbor. A dozen cars and trucks double parked on the dock with out-of-state plates from New Jersey, Rhode Island, Connecticut. Other vehicles pulling up and parking. Men unloading their weapons, boarding small boats. A queue of up-islanders, down-islanders, out-of-towners at the boat rental shack. From rank amateurs in their green golf slacks to the alley poor and Levi tatters, all of this disdainfully observed by Ben Gardner. Cries of, "Cast off!" The starting of diesel engines in contrast to the flooded baby Evinrudes. All of this helped along by a lot of honcho swearing. The sleepy harbor master, an old salt, bends over the deck, washes out his coffee pot in the oily harbor water. He sets down the pot, pulls a small wooden chair into position, on which teeters a Kellogg's Rice Krispies bowl, and collapses into it with a spoon in hand. He watches stoically as Brody rides up on his police bicycle. Brody joins Deputy Hendricks, who's trying to break up an argument at the rental stand. "Christ, Martin, that Kintner lady must have taken out an ad in Field and Stream." Looks like the Harvard Lampoon. "I didn't come all the way out here from New Rochelle to be gouged in the seat of the pants by this loan shark. Prices always go up around here after June 1. Isn't that right, Chief? If you want leaky boots at low rates, go up to the Hamptons." Angle from one of the bounty boats. The narrow channel leading out of the port lies ahead. An incoming boat, a Formula 22 inboard with 110 horsepower Volvo engines. A few of the smaller craft begin zigzagging to clear the right-of-way, their wakes causing annoying chop in the bay. Matt Hooper, a bearded backpacking young man, is at the helm, peering ahead at the ragtag armada. He ties up, revealing for the first time a 7x4 foot steel cage in the stern, drawing some attention. Another man and his two buddies heft a trash can into one of the boats. He lifts the lid, and the stench throws his head into near whiplash. "What is this sewage?" "For chum." "Let's move it." "What's chum?" "Anything that attracts him." Brody looks over the dock rail at the boarding. 8 men have piled into a tiny glastron and are now loading various and sundry weapons, from crossbows to spear guns. Brody walks over to the harbor master. "Isn't there a limit to how many men those boats'll carry?" "Sit down next to me, son, and we'll find out." Exchanging distasteful looks with his mate, Gardner is casting off the bowlines, just as Felix and Pratt, 2 down-island characters, run over. More of a declaration. "Okay, we go out with you." Gardner quickly pushes off, leaving Felix with his boarding legs in the air. "Hunt with the pack, sport. I'll fish for it my way." Felix and Pratt make obscene gestures and run off, looking for boats not yet filled to capacity, trying to make a deal. Hooper sees Brady up in arms about something, walking toward him. Hooper starts to speak, but Brody veers aside and yells over the pier at the loading boats. "No dynamite! Hand that stuff over or you'll never leave port." "It's fireworks! I read somewhere it attracts them." Sharks are equipped with 2 long cords of nerve tissue that function as a sort of radar for honing in on underwater vibrations. To Brody. Understand you're having a little shark trouble. Brody turns and walks away, Hooper barely keeping up with him. I know you have a visitor off your southern shores. I think it could be my shark. It belongs to whoever catches it. To a late arrival. You'll move this car to a parking slot, mister, or it won't be here when you get back. Sir, I'm not with these others. It's always nice to meet an educated man. I'm interning at the American Museum of Natural History, but the Oceanographic Research Institute in South Africa is co-sponsoring my thesis paper, arm in arm with the Natural Institute of Health and the Marine Fisheries Service. Brody pauses to look at Hooper. A careless amateur trips and falls into the harbor beyond him. I don't have time to help you with your homework. Brody goes over to lend a hand, and Hooper persists. I'm trying to prove that the shark that killed Christine Watkins last Friday was the same rogue that savaged these. Hooper pushes a mimeographed sheet in front of Brody, about 20 names, addresses and all. One shark did all this? Hooper, excitement multiplying as he goes on. The trail of a rogue shark leads all over the world. This is only a theory. It's never been authenticated, but there is a wonderful chance that the shark that killed the Watkins girl and the man-eater I tagged off the Great Barrier Reef are one and the same. Off and on I've tracked it to New Zealand, Santiago Bay, Cape Town, South Africa, and the Gulf of Guinea, West Palm Beach, Florida last December, and finally predicted it would follow the warming Gulf Stream into the northern seasonal zones and release an attack pattern along the Jersey coast. I was off by just 300 miles. It hit you instead. You'll pardon me if I don't help you get your PhD while my town here degenerates into some high-class ghost resort. Brody starts away. In the background, all boats are heading toward open ocean. All I'm asking for here is a little future cooperation. I could predict future outbursts of activity in the area. Use me. Let me use you. I scored 93 on my orals, for crying out loud. We've had 2 other attacks since the Watkins thing, both fatal. Could you kill it for us? Honest response. No, sir, I can't. Then how do we begin to cooperate? By letting me see Christine Watkins. The armada is spread out and moving in a ragged circle, 15 boats in all. One man heaves cherry bombs into the water. A smaller boat, going in the opposite direction, offers us barwood, forking spaghetti leftovers into the ocean, while his friend pours out a bottle of ketchup. A speedboat chugs by, one of the occupants reading instructions aloud from a book entitled Sharks, East Coast, Volume 1. A boatload of impoverished scallop fishermen throw a net overboard, full of gaps and split ends. The professionals look professional. The landlubbers, out for $3,000, make it impossible for everyone. Collisions are barely averted. The out-of-towner in a small boat is bent over in a life-and-death struggle, his rod in a tight arc. His buddy leaps across to lend a hand. 20 yards away, in another boat, the same struggle ensues. This time, it's the overloaded boat with the poor scallop fisherman. Shouts of, "I'm on! Dig in! Strike!" Then a tangle of tackle springs from the water. They've hooked each other. Joy turns to swearing. Arnold Felix stands up to applaud the mishap, while his buddy Pratt takes careful aim with his Remington 1100 12-gauge and blasts at the tackle as if it were a clay pigeon. The tangle explodes. Both the out-of-towners and the scallop fishermen fall over backwards. The scallop boat swerves right and bows into an 11-foot glastron. A proud mariner stands in the stern of his 30.06. He's knocked off balance and pitches forward into the drink, his gun exploding outward. The wad of shot from the exploding rifle hits the rigging of a passing boat, sending the jib, mainsail, and about 20 pounds of rigging on top of the bewildered occupants. 3 men are aboard Harry's boat, one holding a rod which holds a fast arc. A few yards off stern, we see a triangular dorsal fin crossing back and forth, struggling, jerking, the mighty tail threshing. One man is screaming success and the other two slapping the angler on the back. Pratt and Felix, spotted and sour. "Well, get over here! He ain't caught it yet!" The owner of Pratt's boat throws it forward and Pratt removes the .45 automatic from the holster on his belt. He tests it, firing once in the air. As they near the scene of the struggle, 11 other boats begin converging until everybody wants to get into the act. They are attacking the threshing beast with all they've got. Pratt uses his automatic. Another blasts point blank with a shotgun. There are occasional water ricochets, and the bounty hunters duck from time to time as bullets skip by. Finally, the shark stops threshing. Their boat has moved close to the shark, closer than Harry's. Pratt exultant. "Hand me that pole, quick!" One of his party in the overfilled boat grabs a gaff and leans out to grab the moribund shark, but Harry won't give up the line. He's still reeling in. "Beat it, I hooked him." "How's the family, Harry?" to the man with gaff. "Go on and do it." "We split down the middle?" Pratt nods reluctantly. The man swings and lodges the gaff and hauls the shark onto the gunwale. A paroxysm of cheers from the surrounding boats. Smoke flares are fired into the air. Harry, a tug of war. "Let go of my shark!" It is a 10-foot blue, and what a mess. Splattered with bullet punctures, gashes, bleeding from several orifices. But it's not dead. It kicks back to life and threatens to capsize the boat. Pratt panics and fires 6 times with his .45. The bullets pierce the shark's head, pass through, and split the fiberglass hull, through which a flood of water rises. Everybody stands up as the boat slips beneath them. A high angle from shore. On a hummock overlooking the cluster of boats stands Quint. He's laughing out loud. A sharp, piercing bark that has little real humor in it. Below, the circle of boats tighten around the spreading stain of crimson. Hooper is measuring the bite marks on the Dayglow raft with his dial calibrators. "I'll look at her now, if you don't mind." Hooper scribbles notes and then mumbles something inaudible into his pocket cassette recorder. Coroner Santos looks to Brodie plaintively. "That was a different sort of accident, as I told you." Brodie, guilty and angry. "Let him." The coroner hesitates and then walks to the ice chest, slides open the drawer. At first his face registers shock, and then, with forced composure, Hooper steadies his hands and begins to take pictures with his Minolta. I've heard the boat propeller story several times, and the nocturnal hatchet murder story, the dashed upon the razor coral story. The little boy was never found? Brodie nods, looking down at his feet. They're very successful creatures, sharks. 80 million years for the species of the great white. The family goes as far back as 300 million. Plenty of time to get good at what they do. An attendant flies into the room, joyfully out of wind. "They called it from the dock, Mr. Brodie! They got it!" He appears stunned, enjoying a light-headedness he hasn't felt in weeks. "Want to see?" Dragging a shark by a tail rope from harbor to beach, a procession of 20 men. A dog follows, barking at the remains of the blue. As they arrive at the beach, Meadows takes charge. He talks to both his photographer and the bounty hunters. Meadows to the photographer. "I want a good one for under the headline. Near the water. Get a group shot with the shark. Use it on page 1, 6 inches by 6 columns center." Some of the men have run ahead, happily knocking down some of Brodie's no swimming signs. Meadows, seeing this, "Great! Bring one over here." In the background, voices and laughter. Some joke about the big-time fisherman Ben Gardner, who's not even back yet. Others open beer, throw frosty cans around, and make it look like a Miller's commercial. Meadows positions the shark and vigilantes. Group around Charlie Tuna. That's right. Now I'll leave it clear in the back. Closer with the sign. Brodie and Hooper are seen approaching 50 yards up the beach. Smile, boys. On 3. Hey, drop the sign. To the photographer. On 3, Bill. 1, 2, 3. Click. Cheers. One more. Just the 2 prize winners. Mock groans as the posse moves aside. Pratt and the gaffer remain. One of the others raises a sign again for take 2. I hooked him, you know. In a little tighter, please. The gaffer doesn't fancy sidling up to the critter. Better check this bastard. He starts to poke it in his eye. Pratt on the other side leans forward for a closer look, gaff in hand. The gaffer pokes the eye. The blue shark is wide awake. A vicious lunge in the opposite direction snaps the gaff in Pratt's hand completely in half. Christ, it ain't dead! Pratt squeezes out a little smile and shuffles 8 feet to his right out of range. Hooper and Brodie walking into the frozen tableau. Hooper walks over to the shark, eyeing it with both amusement and disappointment. Yours? No, this one's a blue. Harry insisting. I hooked him. Brodie persisting. Is it the one? Hooper unravels a lab thermometer in a long nylon cord, twirling it over his head like a lariat, finally hurling it out into the ocean. He then unhooks a steel tape measure from his bag of tricks and spools out feet and inches from the shark's nose to tail. It's sure big enough. 10.6 feet. Who is this guy? Hooper is reeling in his thermometer. Doesn't want to say a student. The Institute of Sharks sent him to lend a hand? Matt Hooper? That's right, except he's half a day late now. I already caught it. Reading the thermometer. Hooper. I'm not so sure. Blue sharks pretty much operate in warm water law and limit their attacks to 70 degrees and up. Holding out the thermometer. The ocean's 55. Pratt after a stymied beat. Who is this guy? The great white's body temperature in the lateral musculature is almost 18 degrees above whatever the temperature of the water. I don't know if this is our bite culprit. Pratt beginning to rave. If you had seen the fight he put up, you would shut up. Hell, he ate a 9-year-old boy yesterday morning, the bastard, and god damn it, he kicks the shark in the nose. This is my shark! Hooper removes its sheath, and the meanest 14-inch hunting knife Pratt has ever seen. Only one way to know for sure. Handing Pratt the knife, handle first. Since it's not my shark, I'm not slitting open the belly to see what portions of the body are still inside, am I? Groans are heard from the bounty hunters, some of whom start to turn away, uncomfortable and queasy at the thought of it. Pratt wraps his hand behind him in defiance of the proffered blade. Well, shit, this guy caught it with me, and Harry over there hooked it. Harry starts to whistle up toward the clouds. As he poises the knife himself toward the underbelly, Not here, Mr. Hooper. This could be it. He's big enough all right, but I still can't be sure until... Brodie nods toward the upper beach. The boy's mother. Mayor Vaughn, Mrs. Kintner, and her father approaching. Mrs. Kintner is draped in black mourning and never utters a sound. She lifts her veil and walks 2 paces forward, spits down at the shark and takes 2 paces back, replaces the veil, recovering her poise. This it? Hooper interrupts. I won't know until I perform a full autopsy. Vaughn, sotto to Brodie. Who is this kid? He's a fish expert from the Oceanographic Foundation. Looking him up and down in a wholly irreverent tone. Well, it doesn't take much of an expert to see that this is the biggest, ugliest, meanest-looking shark ever hooked around Amity Island. To the gathering of men. And who caught her? Harry steps forward, pointing. This guy, Pratt, and me. $1,000 apiece is not a bad day's haul. Vaughn begins shaking hands with the 3 winners, and Meadows snaps some bonus pictures. Mrs. Kintner's father draws close to Brodie and Vaughn, handing Vaughn a card from his pocket. At whatever the cost, my daughter has requested that all preparations be made to ship this animal to her hometown of Marblehead, Mass. Can you accommodate us? What the devil for? Nary a blink from the old man. Vaughn looks to Hooper, weighing the alternatives. We'll see it through, Mr. Sands. To Martin. Martin, you start collecting those signs, and keep your friends away from that demon with his pig sticker here. Let's show some respect for the loss we've incurred. To Meadows, walking him up the beach. Get the story on the state wire. Try to get AP and UPI to pick it up in New York or Boston. Put it on the National. Call David Axelrod in New York. Tell him this one's from me. He owes me one. Father and Miss Kintner walking up the beach with Pratt, Harry, and Gaffer following behind. Brodie kneels next to the shark, making a face at the wafting stench. Some field you picked. Well, there's dolphins, but they don't talk too much. In a radio room, Coast Guard, one man is at the radio. Another, a laundry-white officer, walks toward Brodie. Can't seem to raise your Mr. Gardner. Maybe his radio's out. Or he could have put in somewhere else. He would have called his wife. They walk out together into an eerie dusk fog. No point sending up a plane, huh? I'll get a patrol boat on it. If you like to go. Brodie laughs under his breath. I don't do so hot on boats. The officer. We'll contact you down there if... Brodie urgently stops him. Listen. They've been over this. Brodie, sharks are always around. Blues, browns, macos, thousands. Can't you just get rid of just one for us? Where is it? How do we find it? It shouldn't come around again. Odds are worse on the highways. But you could protect the beach. I mean, you have access to... The officer stops him. We could put up a show. We could give you spotters. But in waves break, the water's cloudy, it's hard to spot. Or we could string out shark repellent. Sometimes it's effective, but then sometimes... What do I do then? Pray for lousy weather? We're just the Coast Guard, Brodie. Brodie walks into the fog until he disappears. Brodie walking away from the station and lighthouse preoccupied with a dozen alternative thoughts. A shattering blast from a foghorn catches him unprepared. He nearly comes out of his skin. Hands clasped to ears. He passes a sign that can barely be seen through the fog. Warning, foghorn can be damaging to your hearing. Hooper is having after dinner with Ellen and Martin Brodie, while a spectacular heat lightning display colors the night clouds and dances on the water miles out. There are good things to be said about meshing. It's worked in Australia for years. Repellent's a myth. Now, there's a cable available charged with 7,000 amps that can be strung along the entire bathing area. We have Kahlua, Mr. Hooper. Matt. And I don't drink alcohol, but thank you. Back to Brodie. We think the great whites possess an electrical sense. Michael walks in. He doesn't smile after the Sunday incident. He's quite dry this evening, and is in possession of the ghastly watercolor of a shark tearing a man in two. Michael, shy, his eyes on Hooper. Mrs. Pfister had us all draw sharks in school today. I told you not to wear that crackerjack ring. It's too big. You're going to catch it on something and lose a finger. Hooper, always interested. There's a very good rendering, Mike. Looks like a thresher. Where'd you learn to draw him? I cheated. I found pictures in one of Dad's books. Hooper is delighted. Gets bitten by the subject or just morbid curiosity? More in the spirit of the public interest. Mrs. Pfister says if we have a bad season, we could sell our pictures to tourists.
We get to paint through American history again tomorrow." Ellen and Brodie exchange worried looks. Hooper digs around in his pocket for something, then looks through his satchel purse. "You want me to speak to her tomorrow?" Hooper hands Michael a shark's tooth on a wire necklace. "Picked up this one in Macau. There's supposed to be a superstition about these things, that if you keep it with you, you'll be safe from shark bite." Michael smiles for the first time, and a warm moment passes between him and Hooper. "I gotta show this to Goober." "Don't sleep with that on, son. You'll cut something in the night." Ellen squeezing his hand across the table. "That was nice. Michael hasn't smiled since his birthday party, and that Kintner accident." "He was a witness?" Brodie changing the subject, referring to the storm. "Yeah, listen, I'm no crack meteorologist, but I think we're in store for some surf." "Hope not. I'm long-lining in the morning. You should come along, Martin. In case you haven't caught the island gossip, I never take baths, just showers." "Aquaphobia or what? Mind if I smoke?" "No. Here, wait." Brodie takes out a lighter as Hooper puts a twisted cigarette in his mouth. Instead of inhaling, Hooper takes a long hit. It doesn't take long for the shock to beat the aroma to where Ellen and Martin sit. Hooper behind the hit. "I'm trying to snag the old boy with 3/32 of an inch stainless steel aircraft cable." Brodie is dubiously amused. "I could throw your ass in jail for that." "I brought my own cage, thanks. If this really is my shark, he's got a Peterson disc tag on his anal fin. It can't be seen from a boat." Brodie growing anger at this young man's imprudence. Once hooked, what then? Hooper brightens and reaches into his duffel, pulling out a shiny stainless steel object, about the size of an alarm clock. Biotelemetry. It's a radio collar. I'll bell the cat and then follow him anywhere. I'm trying to make a deal with the satellite tracking station at Houston, Texas. Brodie getting riled. "Now let's wait a minute. You have him hooked, right?" Hooper trying to be jovial. "Well, I'll never take him without a fight, but..." "And you stick that cigarette case to his neck?" Hooper wondering where this is leading. "That's the game plan." "Then you let it loose. You let it go free?" Hooper sees where this has arrived. He swallows the roach and takes a breath. "I know what you're saying, Martin. Your little lab experiment has seen 3 innocent people killed in the past 3 days. Martin, it's not his shark. Your list makes me sick. You carry it around with you like you're keeping score." "Nature has no conscience, Mr. Brodie." "Oh, Christ, whose side are you on? You told me you'd help get rid of this thing." "What I said was I'd help protect future attacks in your area. If this device works, the early warning to the other shorefront resorts, not just here but anywhere it ranges in the world." "I don't give a crap about your worldwide conquest. What about right here? This town is going under today. Where's your humanity? You could kill this thing for us, flatten its ass, and..." "I'm staying at the Abelard Arms." Hooper gathers his things, climbs into his backpack, smiles at Ellen and kisses her hand. Ellen smiles, not yet recovered from embarrassment. "I really liked the dinner." He leaves. Ellen looks at her hand. Brodie turns and sees her. It's all she can say. Nobody kisses hands anymore. "If you stick that wet spot under the blacklight at Coney Island Aquarium, they'll let you in for nothing." Aboard Hooper's boat, it's slicing gentle swells into the flat water. Hooper's mainlining from a big reel. Tuna halibut clips attached to each of the lines that bears hooks and floats every 10 yards. Large bait chunks are tossed into the water. In the boat with him is Meadows, huddled in a corner, trying to appear eager to learn. Hooper is not cooperating. He storms around, upset and frustrated. "Okay, what's the second species of shark on your dangerous list?" Hooper opens the throttle half speed, looking into the sonar display that casts a green glow in the soupy weather. A blip appears on the screen that draws a speculative hum from Hooper. Meadows trying to sound scientific. Fish activity? Very deep. Looks like a school. More to himself. Mackerel, really clumped together. As the two huddle together in the green spill, Hooper touches the throttle to increase speed, still slightly puzzled. Staying right with us. Didn't you say activity stops if any of those whoppers are around? Tends to. Gets very still down there. Meadows looks up from the scope. His expression turns to horror. Look out! Hooper looks up just in time to avert a near collision with Ben Gardner's boat, the Flicka. It's completely awash with water in the cockpit right up to the gunwales. Seat cushions and hatch covers float about, banging and thumping. The boat is wallowing. It seems that, given a touch more weight, it will sink. That's Ben Gardner's boat. Ben! Ben! Hooper comes up alongside, cuts his engine, and goes forward to tie his bowline to the forward cleat on the Flicka. Bigger blips, both visually and audibly, on the sonar scope. Taking note of this, Hooper stands a moment, trying to figure out what could have done this. There doesn't seem to be any damage fore or aft. Then he notices that one of the after cleats on the Flicka has been torn away. There are scars on the wood, where the screws are used to hold the cleats down. Meadows' skin crawling from foggy stillness. He must have hit something. I'm sure they had life belts on board. Hooper nods toward the water. We see life belts and jackets floating in the unearthly stillness. Hooper gingerly steps onto the rail of Flicka and peeks into the cockpit and cabin. No signs of life. He puts more weight down as he cranes his neck further, and the whole boat lists to one side. Hooper leaps back to his own. He opens a locker and pulls out a wetsuit and other gear. Maybe we should just tow it in. Hooper's suiting up. I'd better see the damage first. Blip blop, blip blop. Sonar scanner. Meadows, suddenly cold, zips up his windbreaker and turns the collar up, as Hooper zips his wetsuit and clasps on a weighted belt. Did he have a dinghy on board? Meadows, who just wants to get out of here. I don't know. Hooper hyperventilates as he places on his mask and checks his hot flashlight. Meadows, alone. I'd rather we just towed it in, Mr. Hooper. Hooper finishes hyperventilating, smiles to reassure him. Be up in a minute. He's ready to go, but hesitates a moment, staring out at the sea. The first time Hooper has appeared to be doubting his next move. He shakes it off, takes a huge deep breath, lets out half, and splashes in. Meadows is all alone in the boat. Just he and the active sonar. He checks the second-hand sweep of his watch, counting out loud. Hooper descends in the froth of bubbles. Warily he turns a full circle with his hot light. At first we see nothing out of place about the Flicka, except that it's lying so low in the water. But as Hooper travels the bottom looking for damage, he comes across a jagged hole, 2/3 of the way forward. The hole is about the size of a basketball, and the wood around it has been bashed and splintered. Hooper explores the hole with his hands and then takes the knife from its sheath and begins to dig at something. Whatever it is comes free in his hand. As he studies his find, his light wanders upward, pointing directly into the dark hole. Hooper looks up. Ben Gardner's dead face staring through the hole in Flicka. Eyes and mouth gaping in frozen horror, his skin pinched like a prune. Hooper bumps his head in trying to get away. He seems to yell through escaping bubbles. His mask fills with water as he flails for the surface. Miscalculating, he bumps into the hull of his own boat, scrambles around it, finally coming up between the two boats, gulping for air, unable to speak, yet shocked and scared, out of breath. Bad? All Hooper can do is hold out his hand, open for Meadows to see. A shiny white tooth, at least 2 inches long, rests in the palm of his hand. A white. It's a great white. I knew it. Looks like he died of fright in there. Meadows is scared shitless. No shark did that to a boat. Hooper rolls up his sleeve and with one stroke of the tooth shaves off the hair of his forearm. One this big could do anything. Meadows will never be the same. Vaughn is on the run, seeing red. He speedwalks out of his office, grabbing his coat and out the door, cuss mumbling all the way. Meadows, still in his boat clothing, appears behind him, his tie undone and sweating. Vaughn jumps into his car just before Meadows can open the passenger door. He takes off in it. Just under a roadside billboard, Hendricks and the other deputy Joyner prepare for a climb with ropes in their arms, paint cans, and large canvas brushes. Beyond them, a few feet away, stand Brodie and Hooper, watching Vaughn pacing back and forth, sucking on a Havana. He has a newspaper in his right hand. Hooper is sketching on a sketch pad. It says here it is caught. Period. Brodie holds out the 2-inch tooth. Mr. Hooper figured its size from this. It's over a ton. It's also over... Put that rotten thing... He pushes it away, and it slices. Yow! Hooper steps over to show him his sketch, wrapping handkerchief around his hand. If my hand gets infected... Meet Carcharodon charcharius. What is it? The shark that just bit you on the hand. Sketching. And this is you. Hooper has sketched the reduced ratio figure of Vaughn, with cigar, standing in front of the jaws. He looks like a dwarf by comparison. 17 feet from anterior to posterior. No shark grows 17 feet for... The famous Swedish naturalist Linnaeus believed that the great fish that swallowed Jonah was not a whale, but a great white shark. Love to prove that, wouldn't you? Get into the National Geographic. What should we do about this white? Hooper has come prepared. He takes from his backpack a Bomar brain calculator and ticks away at it while talking. The longer there's nothing to munch on here, the better chances he'll go. That means, of course, keeping your beaches closed, your fishermen in port. The other alternative is non-corrosive 100-gauge steel mesh, say 30,000 feet of it around your bathing area. Concrete blocks and installation, that would run you $400,000 or $500,000. That is, unless you could seek a deputation from the federal government. Notes Vaughn's non-believing countenance. Beats getting swallowed, doesn't it? Vaughn is apoplectic. His seemingly dead cigar glows again. He takes Brodie by the arm and leads him out of earshot of Hooper. Maybe we can make it up in August. The beach will be open on the 4th of July, damn it! We have to give this a couple of weeks. A couple of days. And that's bad enough. I'll have to think of some reason that'll keep the grease from frying. In the meantime, I want that shark killed. Either do it yourself or hire a pro. But go door to door with the offer. No more of this bounty crap. And Brodie... Vaughn gestures up at the billboard. The beautiful model splashing in the golden surf with flailing arms has been significantly reinterpreted. Some pranksters have painted a huge dorsal fin cutting through the waves next to her. She now looks like a hysterical beachgoer stampeding out of the water. The deputies begin covering it with paint. People have been gathering throughout the scene on bicycles and a few station wagons. First the picket fences and now this. I want to see those little bastards hanging upside down by their Buster Brown shoes. Vaughn storms away before Brodie can reply. Hooper is loading some mainline floats and smelly bait fish on board. 2 young longhairs are assisting him. The old harbor master dips his coffee percolator into the water and rinses it thoroughly while watching Hooper load. He rises to his feet and walks across the pier, looking in the opposite direction about 3 slips away. Brodie and Deputy Hendricks are supervising another loading activity.
6 local fishermen are converting their 16-foot fiberglass double outboard into a gunboat. A sealed crate of high-concussion palm-sized depth charges gingerly finds a place in the bow section, over which fishing gear and nets are positioned to disguise the mission. Brodee to Hendricks. Don't let him out of your sight. Not for a second. Stay at a discreet distance, and damn it, Lenny, no shark talk. The way sound carries over water, you're a dead giveaway. Who's with him? Local hire? I don't know. I want to hear from you, Len. Angling down a stretch of picket fence, little karate cries are accompanied by little flat hands piercing through splintering wood. The hardware store proprietor, bored and withdrawn, suns himself on a chaise lounge surrounded by summer surplus that no one is buying, while the Amity gift and candle shop is offering an outside display on a carousel postcard rack of artificial shark-tooth necklaces, along with an open-air gallery of shark books. A dozen tourists bunch up as business booms here today. Ellen is somehow mired behind Brody's desk, 2 travel folders in her absent-minded grasp. She talks into one phone, at the same time she is talking on another to a breathy, ticky landlady, all of this overlapping. Brody's secretary Polly is in the outer office doing 3 things at once. I don't know where my husband is, Mr. Kretzler. He's only closed the beaches to ensure your safety. First it's 24 hours, then it's 2 days. If one more guest of mine leaves for Cape Cod, I'll start a petition. From the outer office, we hear, Until further notice. You'll have to ask him about that when he gets back. Goodbye. 3 people enter. 2 of them, an elderly tourist couple, push past Polly and into Brody's office, where Ellen stands beside the desk. Excuse me, I see by the papers they caught a killer shark. I see by the signs that the beaches are still closed. We were just wondering. The tourist wife reaches out and takes Ellen's hand in hers, glowing. I think it's simply wonderful positive sign of our times to see a woman chief of police in a nice place like... Ellen removes the receiver from her ear, from which angry geese-like sounds filter through. She starts to explain. Instead, she bursts out laughing, one of those spontaneous, funny cries for help that leaves you weak. She falls helplessly into her husband's swivel chair, covering her face with Acapulco brochures. Entering Quint's abode is not unlike a spooky ride at Disneyland. The placement of objects, the dungeon lighting, the tendrils of smoke and dust in the air makes a visitor wish he was carrying a 100-watt light bulb. There is gear everywhere. The walls are adorned with jerky shark hides, coiled ropes, dangle like serpents above a galley stove that leaks smoke and holds 2 weeks' worth of filthy dishes. Tubes, barrels, rods, reels, harpoons, an antique gun collection, and a dizzy array of shark hooks line the walls, with one entire wall dedicated to a collection of laminated jaws from the blue shark to the great white. Conspicuously at the center of the room is a swivel fighting chair, and it looks like the perfect place to have all your teeth pulled. Into this orifice of decay, Brodee enters. From his point of view, we see Quint hunched over a tub of steaming borax. I know it's late, Mr. Quint. Quint lifts a ghastly set of dripping jaws from the solution. Snappy little novelty item. Quint demonstrates by holding them up to frame his face through the round, jagged opening. Picture frame. Holding it down. Toilet seat. He looks up at his gallery of jaws. No offense, you guys. Confidentially referring to what's left of 16 sharks. Very touchy. All set for the Hallelujah chorus and stuck on the first note. Brodee enters the room like he's treading on hot coal. I would have called you. Quint walks toward Brodie with borax dripping from both hands. He's placed one of them hospitably on Brodie's shoulder. Quint, without losing a beat, "Sure you would, sweetheart," and ushers him into the fighting chair. He then busies himself around the premises, and Brodie must use the swivel chair to follow him, feeling chills whenever Quint moves behind him. "I'm Chief Brodie, Mr. Quint." "Suits me. I'm a social undesirable myself. Listen, me and your great big white." "Who told you?" Quint scrubbing his teeth with a wooden brush. "What's the count up to down there anyway? You can't have much of a town left." "It got Ben Gardner this time." Quint feigning shock. "Ben? Sharks'll eat anything." "I need to talk to you, Quint." Quint slips past Brodie's blind spot to the opposite wall, and Brodie tenses and swivels too fast, almost spinning 360 degrees before breaking with his feet. "Anything. Know what I found inside that tiger, aside from fish and all?" He moves proudly to the shelf of jaws and souvenirs collected from the bellies of sharks. 20 feet of cable, half an army cot, 4 brass buttons, a cocker spaniel, a license plate, a drip-dry shirt, 6-pack of Diet Pepsi. "We can't have this damn thing sneaking in." Quint, as though alarmed, he touches a hand to Brodie's mouth. "Chief, show a little respect. Jesus! Whites are head of the mob out there. This sounds like Lucky Luciano." Brodie wiping his mouth. "Have you ever caught one?" "A 13-footer and one 15. Teenagers." "Now, you're asking $10,000, but look..." Chief, forget it. I get 2 bills a day from charters. I sell the hides, I sell the teeth, I sell the fins to chinks for soup. You ought to try a little shark sometime. Hammerhead's terrific. Here." Quint hops to the oven. An avalanche of pots and pans, a burst of smoke, and before you know it, Quint is presenting Brodie with a hot plate. Home-fried hammerhead. Brodie turns away from the stink. Quint, obsequiously apologetic. "Sorry, nothing fancier tonight, boy. I do make a Mako Provençal." Kisses his fingers. "How's 400 a day, Quint?" Quint is suddenly across the room, lowering a bucket in front of Brodie. In a tone that says, "Fuck off." "Serve yourself, Chief. Shark liver oil, best lubricant in the world." Brodie desperately. "How much do you want?" Quint turns, suddenly bitter. He walks over to a cage with a parrot in it. Clowns trying to bargain. "I came on my own, Quint." "Yo ho ho and a bottle of rum." Brodie rises, pleading. "See, if we could make a deal tonight." "Here's what the price is tonight, Chief." Quint stalks Brodie as he talks, Brodie trying to look reasonable as he backs around the room, bumping into objet d'art. 25 grand to go for it, plus 25 more if I land it. All repairs on the boat and on me. A new rod from Heydays in London. A life subscription to Playboy, a stereo 4-track, and a color TV. "Quint, you know they'll never..." "Let me finish. If it gets me, different deal. 75, no extras." Brodie bewildered. 75 for who? Quint wildly improvising. "For nobody. To make this place a museum or something. Quint's Monster Palace. How's that? Have me stuffed in the middle here, maybe." Quint poses stuffed with a harpoon in the middle of the room. This is the first time he has stopped moving. Brodie addressing stuffed Quint. "I have to tell them something reasonable." Brodie looks for the door, completely disoriented. He tries to open one of the walls. "No problem. Tell them that joke from World War II. He walks over to the parrot. "About the Marines and the landing barge?" Sergeant splashes right in, yelling, "Hit the beach, men, follow me!" And Quint taps the bottom of the birdcage, and without losing a beat, the parrot squawks in falsetto, "Watch out for the shark!" Brodie has found the door and is gone. The door swings in a breeze. Quint turns to his gallery of jaws and smiles with a mock courtly bow. Hooper's Formula 22 tying up in his rental slip. He looks dog-tired as he steps off and stretches his legs on dry land. The most astonishing thing about Matt this night is his obvious disappointment. The gunboat is also tied up, the men unloading. They're in terrific spirits. Each one has caught his limit. The boat is filled with fish, and the men filled with stories. Only Len Hendricks shows the strain. Brodie rides up on his police bicycle. He sees Hendricks 50 yards away in the dust, shaking his head. Brodie turns and rides down the dock toward Hooper, saying goodbye to his day help. Tired and apologetic. "Any luck?" "Might be for you, Mr. Brodie. I think it's all over." "How can you be sure?" "The sea is full of fish again, for one thing. You won't find sea life in the territory of a great white. All the fish we saw in the ocean today, you'd think they were celebrating. I played low-frequency music underwater. That usually works faster than blood." He shrugs. Nothing. Brodie gives him a long look. "Are you feeling okay?" "There are signals in the water. I can always read them. And the currents are shifting." "Vaughn is going to want a statement. What about taking precautions?" "I'd take them for sure. Lookout posts, an alarm system. If you can afford picket boats equipped with sonar repellent line across the bathing area. Jesus, we must have gone 6 times around this crummy island." Brodie's still perplexed. "And you're sure it's..." "You're never going to be immune from an attack. It knows where you live now. Good night." Brodie is left alone in the dock, the sky darkening behind him. 2 cavernous iron doors open on a ferry boat. A crack of vertical light as 6 burly crewmen muscle them apart. The Amity ferry landing is approaching. People in colorful outfits waiting dockside for the first filled-to-capacity shuttle of the summer season, and Bach's Little Fugue is the musical accompaniment to this wholly visual montage of disembarkation. The next 2 minutes should be treated like a short film, taking into account all of the colors, episodes, faces, and behaviors of a variety of Americans who colonize eastern resort communities for the 90-day season. A train of cars trundle down the ramp, bumper to bumper. Young, beautiful people from Princeton, Yale, NYU, wearing knapsacks, toting luggage, babies riding in papusa rigs, energized children, senior citizens holding hands on the pedestrian ramps, a few wheelchairs, a sidewalk vendor hawking balloons for the kiddies, hot dogs, hot fried clams, Italian ices. The Amity Cab Company, small blue Toyotas, run by students on vacation, queued up like a bomber wing. Hooper is watching. Station wagons with pale winter faces pressed anxiously to the windows, Cadillacs with rear admirals at the helm, their wives with blue hair, remembering the way from the years before. Then, 6 blonde and tanned Coney Island meatballs descending the ramp. They all wear men's club lifeguard patches and matching collegiate windbreakers. They scour the landing, looking for someone to save. The boat is empty. Everybody heading inland, anticipating the best 4th of July ever. Already there is debris on the docks, and the cleaning crew works away at it. As Bach's Little Fugue ends, the 6 burly crewmen lean their combined weight against the cathedral doors, closing out the light and locking in the trade. The doors latch shut with a resounding clang. A young ensign is demonstrating Shark Chaser to Brodie from a concrete pier. He lowers a canister of it into the water, and a dark cloud begins to diffuse. "You'll need about 150 of these, 12 feet apart behind your surf line. We'll have to string them right across, that's say 2,000 feet. Make sort of a long black curtain? A repellent." Brodie leveling. but it doesn't always work. Well, it inhibits them, Mr. Brodie. Brightens with facts. The astronauts use it. Brodie is not impressed and gazes into the water. That and tang. If you lifted out any hunk of midday Manhattan intersection and set it here on the colonial corners of Main Street and Pilgrimage Way, you couldn't do any worse. This is what Amity feeds on between July and September. This is what tourists pick over between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. This is what it's all about. The marquee lights go on in the Amity Movie House. Moby Dick is the new substitute feature offering. Pan down to show the theater manager and a boiling, pacing Larry Vaughn. I want this off before the weekend, and if it's not... I thought with all this interest... A weak smile from the manager. It's not a documentary, you know. Gregory Peck as Captain Ahab in an outpouring of classic Melville. The white whale explodes through the waves and crushes 16 harpooners. A single sandpapery laugh accompanies each special effect. Quint sits in the center aisle, popcorn and jujubes stuffing his face. The splayed projection beams dance around his head as he roars with amusement. People are getting up and moving away from him. He's watching with delight, slapping his thigh, thumping the seat back with his feet. We watch as Ahab gets tangled in the line and dragged under by the whale. Quint can be heard over. A 4-foot surfer's swell curls and crashes on shore, riderless. The broad sandy beach is a mosaic of summer color as 1,000 vacationers practice fun in the sun, but not in the water. Hot dog stands and ice cream vendors are everywhere. A half-dozen lookout lofts. As many handsome lifeguards with walkie-talkies strapped to their trunks and loud-hailers at arm's reach. Bored, 2 of the hot dogs train their binoculars on some local color. Tactically flanking a 300-yard apron of black repellent are 4 small watchboats. A 5th tiny pleasure boat darts around the repellent line. Further out, crossing back and forth, are patrol boats 6 and 7. To top it off, a Coast Guard blimp floats 300 feet above. A crunch of gawkers makes life miserable for a mobile TV crew and their van-shaped unit. A graduate from the Columbia School of Broadcasting is interviewing Martin Brodie in front of a dozen camera-conscious kids. The interviewer being humorous. Will you be going for a dip, Chief? Brodie ill at ease. No, I'll be sticking to business today. As you see, we have spotters up and down the beach, and out there is the Coast Guard, State Police, County Police. Everyone is cooperating on this. The question is, if it's so unlikely as you seem to think, it never hurts to play it safe. Thank you, Chief Brodie. He turns to the crew. Let's do a group at the hot dog stand. Vaughn is watching the ocean, aware that nobody is in yet. He turns in the direction of a select man and his family, and after grunting hellos, falls on his haunches and talks through a dogged smile. Will you please get in that ocean? What? Nobody's going in. Move! Indicating his family. And them too. He gets up, gesturing go in to another townsman. The select man gathers his senses, swallows back nagging nerves, to his family with false cheer. How about a swim, gang, huh? 12-year-old daughter. Not you, you have a cold. Vaughn spies Hooper, alone in the sand in his trunks, looking out at sea. The select man and his family of 4 start into the ocean as Vaughn approaches Hooper. You've earned a day off, Doc, and thank you. Hooper looks at him. We feel you've done a heck of a job, you know. Hooper nods and looks back to the sea. I feel the same about you. The select man and his family walk into the surf deeper and deeper until a wave washes over their heads. The select man surfaces and realizes he's wearing his watch. Never mind. Others follow suit and begin to trickle into the white surf. 4 state police with their 30-odd 6s stowed discreetly under their seats. As a Beering state policeman talks to Brodie on the walkie-talkie, we notice boat number 5, a short-range speedster, working the repellent line. "We're putting the fresh cans on, Brodie." He takes beer from the ice chest. "Calm down, will ya?" he shouts to boat number 5. "You guys want a beer?" 2 men and a boatload of canisters. One holds up the nylon repellent line with a pole, as the others replace a can and shout back, "I want a pair of rubber gloves." To demonstrate what he means, he holds up 2 hands, black with dye. A wet can of Budweiser tumbles into one of them. A sailor's walkie-talkie squawks like a strangled chicken. The voice through the walkie-talkie. "Daisy to blimp, Daisy to blimp. 30 yards off my port side." The 2 sailors turn to port. Hendricks is on the radio while a Coast Guard spotter works the sonar. "Anything? Thought I saw a shadow. Over." Pan to the water. A breathtaking view. The blimp spotter looks down with the naked eye and binoculars. "Nothing from up here, Daisy. Over." Hendricks into the walkie-talkie. "False alarm. Must have been this glare." Brodie is walking down the beach, threading his way through happy hordes. "Who's scared to go in? I was in, up to your knees. So come with me. I'll go again. How far?" etc. A group of youngsters play with Michael Brodie's dinghy. They are hauling it toward the surf. "Hey, Mikey!" Mikey turns as Brodie trots toward him. "You're not going to the ocean with that, are you, son?" "I'm all checked out for light surf." "And look at it!" "Do me this favor just once. Use the ponds." "Dad, the ponds are for old ladies." "Just a favor for your old man." "Sure, Dad." Confused. A surfer waving to impress his girlfriend on the beach. He dives off his board and swims around the black dye. The county policeman through loudhailer. "Not so close to the line, please." The 18-year-old surfer submerges and comes up all inky. His girlfriend laughs, impressed. A TV crew near the water is clowning, posing, and boasting for cameras. Dozens of youngsters ride in baby waves, stand on their heads, shoulders of friends, wave, swim out, kick up the water. The TV cameramen are going crazy, burning film and zooming. The surfer won't leave the area. The county policeman through the loudhailer. "Get clear of the repellent line, son." Suddenly his walkie-talkie fizzles, and the blimp spotter's voice overloads the speaker. "Blimp to Daisy, red 4, red 4. Guns are up, heads turning everywhere." Into the walkie-talkie. "Where?" "Went under your... there!" The Coast Guard sonar operator spots it and pales. A slick black dorsal fin is slicing a wake toward the swimming area. The sonar operator says, "Jesus Christ." Rigid and choked, Brodie almost breaks the send button trying to transmit. "Everybody out! Out of the water, please! Leave the water, please!" Hooper is on his feet. The lifeguard next to him begins blowing on his whistle, shouting hysterically into his walkie-talkie. "No whistles! No whistles!" Dozens of bathers halfway out of the water turn to see. More whistles. They start toward shore. The loudhailers sounding more urgent now. Contagious dread seizes one person after another. Entire groups of people begin pulling toward shore, some of them obviously trying to control a growing hysteria in others. Boats 6 and 7 are converging, heading toward the repellent line as if tracking an underwater shadow. The fin is beyond the repellent cordons and heading into the crowds. People begin screaming. Kids are suddenly separated from their parents. Others seem to forget how to swim. One myopic little girl has her glasses bumped off. She begins to cry in blinded panic. The riflemen in the boats are trying to get a bead, but too many civilians create a hazard. The Coast Guardsmen attempt to sever the repellent cord to gain access to the bathing area and the heaving fin. This is a confirmation of our worst dread, a full-blown, headlong water panic. Screaming vacationers claw their way over the bodies of the less able. Some literally attempt to walk over the bobbing heads and glistening backs of others pulling for dry land. Horrified faces in close-up. Some are stunned and wandering in slow, tentative circles. While others are helped out by friends, 5 people try to mount a rubber raft. Ugly reminders that each of us is number 1. Brodee enters the shot, yelling into his walkie-talkie. Hooper charges past him to help an old man out of the water. He returns to pull several others to their feet. Hooper keeps plunging in, dragging the helpless from the surf. Tears well in Brodee's eyes. The screaming is deafening, and the TV unit pushes past Brodee. The interviewer, pointing. "Zoom in, over there!" 1,000 survivors pack the beach, standing absolutely still. A numbing cold sets in, and people shiver against each other. Muted sobs, whimpering, coughing. The 6 burly lifeguards huddled together like Cub Scouts. A monstrous black fin turns a slow circle as 2 Coast Guardsmen manage to cut their own repellent line. All boats converge on the dynamic fin. Men raise their guns to fire. Others ad-lib nautical commands in a uniquely calculated fashion. The fin slips sideways, revealing for the first time a tiny blue snorkel. Then appears the faces of 2 youngsters, whom we will recall from the coven behind the dune. The fin bobs back, a beaverboard replica attached to a partially submerged surfboard. One youngster looks up and is greeted by 20 rifles and shotguns pointed directly at him, surrounding him on 3 sides. Some of the policemen start to lower their guns, struck dumb. The youngster's only defense, he begins to cry, and feebly raises his hands in unconditional surrender. The narrow estuary leading into the half-mile is rough today. 2 children digging in the sand and unaware of the beach panic, 100 yards away, look up, and the little girl points. The black dorsal fin is cruising through the narrows toward the busy pond. Michael is tackling full sail in his boat with a friend, Kit. Kit is admiring the shark's tooth necklace around his own neck, while Michael rubs some water on the scratches left by it. The fin, huge, black, and real, crosses behind them. They are not yet aware. The fin seems to circle and return. It heads toward Michael's boat when another small dinghy gets in his way. A weekend novice just finishing a thermos of coffee when he's bumped. The entire boat is overturned. Michael sees the fin now as it collides with him, the entire bow lifting out of the water and rolling over on the port side. Michael and Kit are thrown head first. 3 heads in the water come up sputtering. The fin between them crossing back. Michael freezes. The fin comes directly at him, growing into the sky and passing him so close he could touch it. But it ignores him as it follows the flailing and panicked weekend novice. It catches him. Michael watches that all too familiar explosion of water and choked off scream. The head and upper torso of the novice passing Michael swiftly as though being carried off. A current of blood trailing around. The renewed cry of, "Shark! Sementia Pond!" Brodee turns. Oh God! He runs through the slogging sand. "Block the estuary!" Coast Guardmen yell. 3 boats racing to carry out the orders. The black fin repassing the 2 children and racing to get out. One rowboat reaches the mouth before the others. The fin won't veer off. It smacks into the tiny vessel, tearing off the bow and beaching it in its wake, racing into open water. Blood leavings. Hooper is pulling Michael out of the water as Brodee runs up. Michael is conscious, but he's in shock, his eyes staring at nothing. Hooper feels his face. "He's in shock. Get blankets." People gather and Brodee snatches beach towels out of their hands. They cover Michael and carry him off the beach, feet raised above his head. "I can read signals in the water. When they're around, when they leave. I saw the signals. It moved on. They reported an attack up the coast towards Ipswich, Maine today. Ah, Jesus, Martin, I'm sorry. In Quint's shack, the 1940s hit Hubba 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 blares from a new stereo. Barbara Walters blares from the new color TV. Brodie has the look of a man who has gone without sleep for 2 days. He's slouching in the fighting chair, watching Quint, who's shoving Salvatore toward the window. Quint shouting over the noise. You know which cans, stupid, the whale meat! Get 'em out of the deep freeze and on board. This done, Quint picks up a harpoon and tests the point. He sharpens it on a shark hide. And where would you like this shark delivered, sir? Brodie evenly. Anywhere we can see it's dead. Quint looks at the TV. You want him gift wrapped? Brodie rises to go. Call me, as soon as you have some news. Quint talks past him in a loud, open voice. What is it now? We see Salvatore, afraid of him but resolved. I ain't going. I ain't going. Quint snaps the generator off, with quiet menace. You ain't what? I ain't that crazy, that's what. Now, I brought in some mean big mothers with you, but I'm resigning on this. No, sir. Quint to his gallery of jaws. Mutiny on the Bounty. I don't mess with nothing built like no station wagon, 18 or 20 foot. Quint bored. How much do you want? Not with no man-eater. He ain't gonna live with no reputation on me. Quint sharply turning away. Go load up. That's all I'm gonna do. Quint picks up a length of rope and starts to coil it. Turns to Brodie. Might have to wait till I dig up another. I'll go. Quint takes him in with a tight smile. He tosses Brodie the length of rope. Tie me a barrel knot. Brodie feels useless holding the rope end. I really want to go, Mr. Quint. Quint ignoring him. 5 lengths of half-inch 20 number 14s. Straight gaff. Brodie leaving. I'll get a pro to come along. Quint runs through his checklist to himself. He pans down to the floor and an arsenal of hand-to-shark weaponry. Flying gaffs, tail rope, eye splices, M1, pliers, irons. Hooper's fighting gear is on deck. His colleague from Woods Hole looks at him with some dismay as they go over the checklist of fighting gear from the Oceanographic Institute. The colleague, in a smaller boat alongside, hands him the last few bits and pieces. Grimly. Powerhead, CO2 darts, hyporegulator, tanks, depth gauge. The colleague glances up toward the flybridge and Quint. Salvatore goes back and forth, rolling on chum barrels. You shouldn't be on this, Matt. He pauses and watches. Hunting anything down, I mean. That's not our area. Hooper signing the receipt. Maybe I'm in the wrong area. Quint looks down at the undersea cage that's sitting on the transom of the Orca. What's this, glamour boy? A portable shower? Hooper shakes hands with his colleague, who pushes off and shakes his head. Thanks, I'll see you. Huh? Hooper disinterested of what he thinks of the anti-shark cage. And you're inside, in the water? If necessary. Quint smiles, nodding. You're in the water with the shark. That's right. With an operatic gesture, Quint sings him down in his best voice, soulfully. Believe me, if all those endearing young charms that I gaze on so fondly today. Hooper glancing toward the pier. Let's go. Brodie is walking down the pier, bundled in foul-weather clothes, like a tenderfoot sea scout. He carries a shopping bag and an overnight kit. Quint can't help himself. He guns the Orca's diesel engines to sound like a wolf whistle. Well, shiver me timbers! Brodie is helped unsteadily onto the boat by Salvatore, who then leaps lightly to the dock and casts off with style. Even now, Brodie is beginning to look sick. He holds on to the hatch handle. Quint to Brodie. Bow, stern, aft, forward, port, starboard. You got it? Good. He yells over the engine noise to Salvatore. Missing a great adventure, Sal. Salvatore waves and smiles as the boat pulls away. You bet, Mr. Quint. Bye-bye. The orca chugs past the dock and out toward the narrow breakwater. The Blue Shark frenzy, per Benchley's novel, to get the third act underway. The orca is drifting in neutral. The ocean is like gelatin. The sun sucking heat waves from its surface. Brodie at the stern, handkerchief on his head to protect from further sunburn, has been handed the slimiest job on a shark hunt, the ladling out of the chum. Brodie is reeling with nausea. Hooper is up at the wheel on the flybridge. He dons a baseball cap and aviator sunglasses. Quint is firmly situated in the fighting chair, reeling in the bait. All three have the look of being on open water for the better part of a day, with no luck. Quint to himself. That don't tempt him either, huh? He hauls in the bait. 2 mackerel, barely alive. We'll find him something. Hooper studies his man Quint as he flings aside the mackerel. Brodie has stopped chumming and is retching over the side. Quint yelling at Brodie. Keep that chum going! We got 5 good miles! Don't break it! Brodie opens his overnight kit and takes out a handkerchief and some Old Spice aftershave. He pours the aftershave into the cloth, presses it to his nose, and resumes ladling. Quint almost trips over Hooper's tank as he walks to the chum barrels. He roughly kicks them aside. Fancy goddamn toys! Hooper jumps up. Careful! Compressed air! Crack that and it explodes like a bomb! Quint mutters. Cluttering up my deck? Quint takes a wide red strip of whale meat and a gnarled squid from the garbage pail and searches for a number 2 hook rig. With distaste. That from a pilot whale, too? Quint deftly slicing whale. Can't you tell? Here. He holds up the strip of whale. Quint has sculpted it into the outline of a whale. Cute, huh? To Brodie. The experts don't approve. Brodie shades his eyes from the white sun as Quint baits up. Now you swim down and... He kisses the bait. Give a nice big kiss to Mr. White. Brodie, croaky. You still think it's all the way out here? Quint snapping bait to his leader. I think like they do, Chief. And they have brains the size of a radish. Quint gets a big laugh out of this and sits in the fighting chair. He casts off, murmuring as the line feeds out. Now, if he weren't around, we'd be hooked onto something else by now, wouldn't we? But he scared 'em all away. Yeah, didn't you, Yeah, I know you, you poor lonesome son of a bitch. Come to Papa, you... The line whizzes off the reel, and Brodie jumps up. Quint puts his hand on the drag, and addresses the situation softly. Atta baby, he'll gulp it down now. Making gulping noises. Ho-ho! Quint tightens the drag and strikes. The line goes whizzing out. Brodie runs to Quint's side. You got it? Quint turns with the pull. Get behind me, dummy! Shouts to Hooper. Reverse her and turn. He's taking too much line. To Brodie. Wet my reel, quick! Brodie pours water on the screaming reel, nearly unspooled now. Hooper is turning the boat around, and the line changes direction. Quint straining, muscles popping. Starboard, for Christ's sake! Hooper steers it sharply. Quint to Hooper. Half speed there! Again, the line changes direction. Down this time. Quint yells to Hooper. Neutral! To the sea. Where the hell is he going? Quint reeling in like mad. Oh, this ain't fooling me now. The rod arcs down with a surge. Sure, try it. The line rushes out, and now there's less tension. Quint is horsing up and down, reeling in. He's making us believe it's easy now. The line is almost vertical, and Quint shows a hint of bafflement. He reels in suspiciously. Getting ready to run again, no? No? Suspicious. What's he playing here? He reels in furiously. To Hooper. Put the gloves on. Let's see who's gonna tease who. Down here. Do like I told you. Hooper's rushing down. Can't bring him up so quick. Quint bathed in sweat, hauling and reeling. How do you know? How do I know? The leader shows above the waterline. Brodee is wide-eyed, waiting for that first look. He's nearly up. Quint to Brodee. Unbuckle me fast. Grab the leader. He ain't normal, this one. He'll never... To Hooper. Snap it on, jerk. Hooper snaps the rope onto the leader and holds on. Watch your hands. Suddenly to Brodee. Grab onto this. Before he realizes what's happening, Brodee is clumsily clutching at the big rod, appalled. Quint skips away for a harpoon. He picks up one from the row of 12 and turns. That's when the leader lashes free, sending Hooper crashing backwards in a serious fall, and the rod whips at Brodee's forehead, drawing blood. Quint snatches up the rod and reels in. The wires have been bitten through. Quint addressing the ocean. Sure, you're having a ball. To Hooper, still sprawled on the deck. Get back up here. He's hurt. I'm okay. What's the point with hooks and lines? Don't tell me my business. To Hooper, he points. 1/4 mile that way. Full throttle. Hooper shakes off his dizziness and obeys. Brodee watches Quint rig up the new leader and hook up the same bait. Brodee, nursing his forehead, gestures at the rod and reel. I don't understand, though. How do you expect to... This tricks him to the surface. Got that? Then I can jab him. You understand? He goes to the flybridge, muttering. Then I'm going to haul it in like a catfish. Brodee begins to apply cream to his sunburned nose. Quint suddenly pointing. Over there! Why over there? Still looking. At least you handle the boat all right. I can do more than that. Look, Quint, I brought along a... Stop. Here, cut the engine. Hooper cuts the engines as Quint swings nimbly down. He stands stock still on the main deck, motioning Brodee to be silent. Then, picking up the newly rigged rod, Quint soft shoos it over to the chair. About to sit down, he freezes. He looks stunned. Brodee moving back, eyes wide. Hooper moving closer, aghast. We see the shark, from their combined point of view. A jet black fin. Then, the head and upper jaws, 20 yards off. It finally submerges, veering off to one side, with a neat slap of its tail. He puts the rod away. Jesus, I heard they got that big. Closer to 30 feet. 25, and 3 tons of him there. Hooper to himself. What's the formula? In his head. Girth, say 150 inches, squared and divided by 800. That's 6150. 2,000. He stops wryly. Just over 3 tons. Quint snorts and dumps the chum overboard and flings in the 2 mackerel. Where did it go? Hooper is rummaging in his gear. Brodee watches him locate a small waterproof signal light. He starts to attach it to the first barrel. Quint, who's been scanning the area, spins around. Don't monkey with none of my gear. Hooper trying to be patient. Your harpoons are attached to these, right? Indicating barrels. They pop up and drag on him. Drag on him till he's through. Isn't that the idea? You can't improve on it. Hooper switches on the signal light. It pulses a glow that hurts the eyes, even in broad daylight. What if we have to follow him? Quint breathed in smoke until his tongue catches fire. Sonny, take that and your formulas and your cage. Take your whole half-ass hardware store here and... A wail of a thump jolts the orca. Quint grabs for a harpoon. Brodie pulls out his snub-nosed special from his shopping bag. Hooper sees the panic on Brodie's face and reaches a hand out to him. Put that away! Quint on the pulpit, harpoon poised. Once more! Whoomp! Quint almost takes a tumble into the water. We see the glistening back and fin below him. He plants the harpoon. The great white slaps the transom with its tail and sounds. The rope reels out in a blur. Hooper pins Brodie out of the way of the spinning coils just in time. The barrel with flasher attached literally somersaults out of the boat, missing both men's faces by 7 inches. Quint is already poised, feet planted, with harpoon number 2. The barrel skips like a flat rock over the surface of the water, then unexpectedly vanishes under the water. Quint poised. We can't stay down. He can't stay down, swimming with that on. Wait till I stick him with 2. That'll worry him. Come on upstairs. What's he waiting for? He can't keep down this long. Brodie and Hooper enter the shot behind him. The sun is low slung over the horizon. Why don't we go in? Have a crack tomorrow. Quint doesn't turn. We're staying out here till I got him. They exchange looks. He's nuts. Brodie is asleep on the deck. The day has taken its toll. Brodie is riding the crest of some bad dreams, on the verge of waking at any moment. Both Quint and Hooper sit in the transom. Hooper takes a long pull from a bottle of Quint's home brew. Quint is railing at him, both a little smacko. Close call, my ass. A baby dogfish in a laboratory. See this thumb? Quint flaunts his thumb, a checkerboard of scar tissue. Hooper hands back the bottle. You've got the monopoly, huh? Here. Hooper rolls up his trouser leg, boasting a crescent scar on his calf. Look at this one. Quint snorts. Beauty mark. Quint starts to pull up his own pant leg. Bull shark scraped me. I was down getting samples, and he... Quint puts his leg on Hooper's laugh. Mako, watch that. A slow, mischievous grin stains Hooper's soggy face. He slowly unbuttons his shirt, knowing an ace beats the 3 of club. An S-shaped white scar on his side says gin. 8-foot moray eel, right through the suit, buddy. Quint staggers to his feet. He begins undoing his belt and undoes his zipper. You're in one piece, ain't you? Hear me, lovely? Quint pulls down one side of his pants to his hip. It looks like a small piece of him was cored out. Minor league. Where's it from? Tilly Schwab, Newark, New Jersey. They both laugh, and Hooper pulls his shirt down over his left shoulder. Right, you want to play dirty? Displays his tiny scar. Standing in line for The Exorcist. More laughter. Quint takes off his shoe. I've got a toe that'll wipe the floor with you. Hooper laughs and undoes his belt. A what? You've got a what? Something catches his eye and sobers him. He's up again. The stroboscopic signal light surfaces at the horizon. Quint grudgingly. Very handy light, I'll say that. Hooper feeling macho. Let's move in on him. Quint shakes his head. Not till I can see him good. A long look and a hint of worry. Even the one'll keep pulling him up. He'll need 3, maybe 4. Most I've ever used was 2. He swigs from a bottle. Bastard ran me halfway to Liverpool. Did you kill him? Quint still staring. Always do, once I stick a barrel on him. Back to Hooper. No more objections? Hooper doesn't replay. Quint needles him. Jaws 2 foot wide. Real prestige item.
Hooper shrugs. Quint hands him the bottle. Hooper cocks his head, noticing a scar patch on Quint's right forearm. "How'd you get that one?" Quint, staring out at sea, doesn't seem to hear Hooper. The signal light disappears. Down again. Hooper persisting. "The scar on your arm." Quint detached. "Had a tattoo there." Jocular. "You changed your mind about someone?" He shakes his head. "It said USS Indianapolis." Hooper's face falls as he hears this. Quint looks at him ironically. "Guess you experts know about that." Once again, Quint turns his eyes to the sea. "You were on her? June 45? Quint flat and quiet. "On her and torpedoed right off her. Into the drink with 900 other clowns. Started with 900 anyway. Floating in that big warm Pacific." The light surfaces again. "Must have been like a dinner bell in there. Explosions, half the guys bleeding. Soon as the sharks came homing in on us, we went by the manual, of course. Kept trying to float in groups, doing what they said, splashing at 'em, yelling at 'em, hit 'em on the nose, they won't bother you, all of that. They tore apart about 100 men the first night. And pretty soon, when they stepped it up, you'd feel 'em bump you. And the guys would get pulled down a couple of yards. It got 2 days, then 3. Well, some fellas couldn't take it anymore. They pulled off their life jackets and got it over with. We were in the water 110 hours. Sharks averaged 6 men an hour." He nails Hooper a hard look. "They're all experts." He spits in the ocean. Hooper is weakened by the story. "Jesus, Quint, you can't blame..." Hooper is interrupted by the boom and banshee cries of a distant whale. Brodie springs out of his shallow sleep. What the hell?" Hooper, depressed. "A whale is out there." Quint sits in the fighting chair. "So is he." The light has surfaced 1/4 mile away. "Go on and sleep, the 2 of you." Brodie sinks back, half awake and panting from his burst of fright. Hooper looks at Quint a long time, suddenly a stranger again, and then beds himself down in the balmy night air. Quint starts to doze, massaging his missing tattoo. The Orca sits on unruffled waters, a planetarium of star life overhead with shooting stars, every now and again making incisions into the heavens and leaving green trails behind. All is quiet, not a breath of wind. The barrel's strobe light pops into the foreground, close. It heads toward the Orca, carving neon blue phosphorescence into the water. The massive dorsal fin surfaces in the night and circles the Orca, leaving phosphorescence in its broad wake. The night skies, the silent waters, are now alive in dancing light. We get angles of the men as they sleep. A sound is heard, a low, protracted scraping, but no one awakes. The sound returns, another scrape, a scratching noise. It almost sounds like chewing. Then a gentle bump at the stern. Quint stirs and Brodie turns over. Hooper is sleeping soundly, and then a seizure of violent shaking, a horrible splintering and popping noise. Quint half falls, half springs out of the chair. Hooper is on his feet, but losing his footing. The Orca is once again bumped from underneath. Brodie holds on, his gun in hand. Quint pulls out his M1. "Start the engine." Hooper's on the flyboard in 6 bounds. Quint fires seaward over the transom. The engine starts, but something sounds very wrong. "Cut it! Cut it!" Quint cranes to look around, but no light can be found. "I don't know where he is. Ripped something loose. Shaft or something." He hefts up a deck board and pokes his small flashlight into the cavity. "I told you I have things to kill it with. Take over, I can..." "Quint!" Quint slams down the board. "Start the pump, goddammit!" Quint can't hide his fear now. "Are we leaking?" Sound of pumps starting.
We'll start afloat. Watch for the barrel. Can't I bail or something? Quint takes Brodie by the arm and sits him down, pointing to starboard. Keep your eyes open, that's all. Out there! To Hooper. And keep looking that way, killer! Quint takes up the opposite position and loads his M1. Brodie checks his gun. Hooper looks with binoculars. And nobody sleeps. Nobody! The three men standing sentinels. Stars and quiet seas. Phosphorescence lighting up the water. Hear the whale crying from far away. Brodie leans against the windshield on the flybridge. His arms hoist binoculars to his eyes. Visible without binoculars is the signal light and barrel, not moving, 200 yards astern. An angry racket filters up from below deck. Quint is effecting engine repairs the only way he knows how. Brodie has learned a neat sailor's trick and nimbly slides down the handpiping, his feet avoiding the steps. He sidles next to Hooper, who's struggling into his full wetsuit. It moving? Loud and off. No, still there. Hooper is busy attaching the cage to the gin pool. He's full of purpose, his hands working against the clock. Short glances to the hatch from where Quint can be heard. Cursing and wrenching. Please, Matt, don't get him sore. He's loony enough. Hooper tests the rope and inspects his gear. He selects a steel pole and opens a tiny green felt case. Put all the stuff away before he finds out. Hooper opens the case, removing a deadly-looking syringe head. Grimly. He had a turn. Now I'll have a turn. He mounts it on a steel pole. Maybe you should have a turn, too. Brodie tries to reason, when Quint emerges, dirty, red-eyed, and haggard. He pauses to take it all in. What is this? Hooper without looking up. Strychnine nitrate, 20 cc's. Wear all the Batman costumes you want, sport, but you don't interfere with me. Quint starts to climb the bridge. Hooper to Quint. All you need to do is lower me in. Quint mutters to himself. I need a transom that don't leak every time that... He starts the engine. The shaft goes around. An even sputter. Bent. The seam is splitting open there. Quint finesses the Orca slow ahead toward the barrel. The engine sound like a hamster treadmill. Hooper climbs up beside him. You know he'll go for the cage. Not today, Doc. No injections. I can finish him in 60 seconds. Quint listening to the engine. Whole goddamn housing is loose. He can hear it, too. Can you stop with this Moby Dick crap? We do this the way I know how. Quint cuts the engine once alongside the barrel. Hooper barely controls himself and climbs down. Quint follows after him, putting a cautionary hand on Hooper's shoulder to walk softly, and then motions Brodie to stay on the flybridge and keep his eyes peeled. Tiptoe to the stern, Quint intercepting a harpoon along the way. Hooper leans way out over the transom and pulls the barrel closer. It bobs around easily, arousing Quint's suspicions. Softly. Playing possum. Hooper pulls up the slick nylon rope, leaving the barrel untouched in the water. Pull up easy. Only want to goose him up. Second you feel he's running, you drop it. If you want any hands left. Hooper starts hand-reeling in. Surprisingly, there's no resistance. Both men share perplexed looks. Then Quint reaches over, his whole body leaning over the side, putting down his harpoon. Here, gimme. I don't know what he's... Both men are draped over the side of the water, their chins almost touching on the aft side. From the opposite starboard direction, fully unfastened from the barrel, comes the great white. First the fin, then the conical nose, the upper border of the wide, grinning teeth. It knifes through the water in absolute silence, propelling itself with tremendous speed toward the unsuspecting men. Brodie's instincts shine, as does his newly acquired sense of direction. Brodee at the top of his lungs. "Shark! Starboard! It's under you!" They turn just in time. A long spine stretch saves them from instant decapitation. The great white passes the transom, the harpoon still in its side and trailing 5 feet of chewed-off cable. The monster rolls on its side and looks at them as it passes. Then, with a great sweep of its tail, it lashes the side of the boat, ripping the rope from Quint's hand and shearing off 5 yards of paint like a lathe. It makes a wide arc out to sea, only the fin showing now, and begins to circle around the boat. Quint notices his hand, palm cut and bleeding. He realizes how close he came to losing his whole hand. He has never been more dangerous. Quint to Brodee. "Haul in that rope, it can foul us." Screaming. "Start the engine," to Hooper. Brodee and Hooper exchange places. The engine starts with a terrible grinding. Roaring. "Easy, it'll tear right out." Brodee next to him hauling in rope. "We can't do it ourselves." Seeing red. "Shut up!" "He chewed through this, he'll crack your boat. Radio in for help." Quint to Hooper. "Pump her out a little." "I mean it, send out an SOS." Quint spittering. "Don't make me laugh when I'm working." Brodee with sudden resolve. "I'll do it." Brodee heads off for the cabin. A perfectly terrible look comes over Quint. He raises up and starts after Brodee. Brodee disappears into the cabin. Quint pauses outside and sees his lead-centered baseball bat. Calloused hands grab it up fiercely. Brodee picks up the radio, flicking on knobs and lights on the complex console. "Beg your pardon?" Quint appears, silhouetted in the hot light of the door, raising his bat. "Duty first and pleasure after." Brodee looks up in horror. Quint brings down the bat with all the strength he can muster, and crash, sparks fly, lights blink and go out. Plastic and sections of metal ricochet all over the cabin as Quint demolishes the ship-to-shore radio. Quint takes a happy breath and winks at Brodee. He hands him the bat. "Excuse me." If he were 10 years older, Brodee would be on the floor with heart failure. Hooper is urgently pointing. "Coming right to us." Quint grabs up his harpoon. "No, coming at us. Slow down, he'll slam us head on." The engine clanks. "Slower, throttle back." The shark is closing the gap, faster. Quint raising his harpoon. "Hard to port." Hooper pulls the boat into a tight turn, and Quint has a shot at the upward rolling flank. He sinks it with careful precision. "Try shaking that out." Brodee emerges from the cabin as the rope zips overboard and the barrel, charging over, catapults into the air before plunging into the ocean in a cloudy splash. Brodee shouts to Hooper, "This won't kill it." Hooper, "Swing around after him." Hooper can see the fin racing ahead of the barrel, diving down. Up again, Quint prepares another iron. "More gas, go to half. Get me right alongside him." The engine thuds and knocks. Hooper's shouting down, "You can't rev it up this high." Suddenly, the barrel gongs into the side of the Orca. "Watch it!" Hooper skillfully avoids the speeding rope. "Attaboy!" Quint leans to one side, harpoon over his head. The great white breaks the water, and "Take 2, they're small!" He sinks it deep. We hear shots. As the new rope whips out, Brodee can be seen on the gunwale, clutching the steel cage with one hand, firing his pistol at the shark with the other. Quint shakes his head in amused disbelief as the barrel goes over. Hooper yells at Brodee, "Don't shoot him anymore. He's crazy on his own blood already." "I can't stand here doing nothing." "Order in the court." He has seen 2 barrels pop to the surface. Quint racing over. 3 will do it. He's having trouble with 2. He yells to Hooper and Brodee as he swings behind the controls. "Grab yourselves a couple of poles." Quint steers slow ahead, engine protesting as he maneuvers toward the moving barrels. Quint peers down, steering closer and closer. Get ready, now snag 'em! Together, Brodie and Hooper hook a barrel rope and hold on for dear life as the shark changes course. Pull in the ropes and tie 'em onto the transom. Free ride. Brodie and Hooper pull it in with all their worth as Quint helps out by wheeling in a circle. He laughs to himself, enjoying the spectacle. Hooper secures the rope to a cleat, but allows the barrel to hang overboard. He helps Brodie with his chore on a second adjacent cleat. The boat is jarred violently from side to side as the underwater force of the great white jerks and heaves them to and fro, up and down, side to side. Hooper and Brodie are both torn off their feet, and the boat is thrust forward. Quint sees the fin ahead. It's pulling the boat. Get tired, that's the idea. Here's a little reverse for you. The shark leaps partially out of the water, and the sight is both horrifying and awesome. Its jaws break the water, snapping at the ropes that have him snarled and frustrated. Quint throws the orca into neutral and shouts down, "Haul in! Watch the prop!" At that, Quint slides down to the prow, grabs up an iron. It is too light. He grabs another, finding satisfaction in its heft and balance. The shark can be seen directly ahead, threshing closer. "Now untie him! Quick, now!" He sinks the iron, and the shark veers downward in a gushing shower of spray. Hooper and Brodie are trying to untie from the cleats, but both ropes are stretched too taut. They jump out of the way, as the ropes stretch down the side and behind the boat, knocking over objects as it skeeters across the deck. A tight jerking motion, and the orca is dragged through the water backwards, and much too fast. Water is splashing up over the transom in its backward wake. "I said untie him!" Wrenched to one side, Quint is knocked from his feet. A moment of slackness on the two cleats, then a great surge of raw strength. The rope snaps the cleats off, screws and splintered wood spraying, and the barrels fly into the water. They disappear beneath the turbulent gray surface. The three men, breathing heavily, bruised and pouring sweat, look out over the blank water. Pop, pop, pop. 1, 2, 3. The barrels surface, ready for more. He can't go deep now, or far. Not with those, and not for long. Brodie looks down at his feet. There is salt water up to their shoe tops. What about us? Quint, mentally assessing the damage. Have to pump her steady is all. The barrels start a wide circle. Each cuts through the water, pushing a wave before it, and leaving a wake behind. Quint to Hooper. Follow him! To Brodie. You start pumping out there! Quint tosses Brodie the hand pump and then picks up his 30-06. He checks the load. Maybe a brain shot, one lucky hit. Hooper on the bridge. He's heading under. No way, he can't. Incredulously. The barrels approaching the orca dip below the surface. 1, 2, 3. Where did he go? Brodie looks around. Hooper on the flying bridge, searching in all directions. Quint is looking more appalled every second. Quint helplessly. He can't stay down there with 3 barrels on him. What are we dealing with here? Where is he? Have you ever had one do this? Quint, and he means this. No! A booming thud at the keel. Brodie slides on the wet deck, and Quint loses his footings, falling into Brodie's arms. With him, we watch the barrels pop up ahead of the bow, then veer briskly to the left and plunk down again. Follow him! I can't see him! Brodie, panic-ridden and barely in control. There! The barrels have surfaced, and we see the lengthy shadow passing underneath the orca. It is incredibly huge. There's always more of it. There's a scraping noise, and Quint looks down
as two of the barrels drag along the sides of the boat. "He's trying to sink us!" Quint: "Dead astern! Zigzag!" There's something different about Quint. He's quieter now, more icily calm. The colorful cockiness has left him. Brodie senses that Quint knows he's in a fight for his life. The orca takes evasive action, but the three barrels are steadily closing the gap. The engine makes sloshing noises now, missing and backfiring. "He's chasing us! I don't believe it! Full throttle to port!" He gooses the throttle, but the engine only screeches and pounds erratically. The three barrels pass beyond the boat, negotiating a tight circle, and plowing mercilessly toward the orca. The tip of the fin aims for the stern. Quint is ready with his rifle. The shark breaks water and rises like a rocket, snout, jaw, and pectoral fins shooting straight up. We see the smoke-white belly, the pelvic fin, as it clears the surface and falls sideways, drenching Quint, who fires 6 times. The orca shudders from side to side. From Hooper's point of view, we can just discern what is happening. The shark has a lower transom in its jaws and is shaking the boat with each jolt of its head. Quint shoots until spent. Brodie seizes a gaff and drives it down at the conical nose again and again. "Throttle back!" When they next peer out, the dorsal fin can be seen gliding away, beginning a long circle around the orca. Right about now, the orca's engine breathes its final fumes and fails. Utter dismay. Hooper turns the key. The motor wheezes, but the engine is dead. His eyes flick from Hooper to the transom. It's cracked. Then out at the barrels. They don't seem to be moving. Brodie notes this. "Maybe we killed it." Quint: "Don't I wish." "We didn't kill it." In rebuttal, the barrels begin to move again closer, in tighter concentric circles. Hooper slips into his weight belt, strapping on his compressed air tanks. No one wants to stop him this time. Even Quint helps him on with things. "Your pumps are out too. Drop me down to 20 feet or so, okay?" Hooper walks over to the cage. He opens the steel doors and closes himself in. Hooper to Quint: "Try to keep him off me until I'm down." Quint nods grimly and Hooper brandishes the pole with a fixed syringe. He gives him a thumbs up and Hooper absently returns it. Quint circles the deck, eye on the barrels. On opposite side of the bars, Hooper and Brodie. With a reassuring smile. "Lower away, Chief." He pops his mouthpiece between his teeth and lowers the face mask. Unsure, Brodie manages to undo the knot that starts the cage into the ocean. He and Hooper stare at one another as their faces pass. Hooper is moving down into the slate-gray sea. Brodie curls the rope around his forearm for a stronger hold. "That's the way, Chief. Live and learn." Hooper's point of view is submerging. The sky, the horizon, waterline, clean, fresh sea air, then magnificent inner spaces with bubbles sparkling in front of us. Hooper floats down to 20 feet. He never stops looking around 360 degrees. He removes the rubber guard from the needle and waits. Brodie and Quint's turning heads tell us that the barrels are still circling. Suddenly, both heads stop turning. The barrels have come to a stop. Delicately, they change course and meander toward the lowered cage. Hooper's back is to us. He's now completing a visual sweep and turns, eyes front into close-up, fixes wildly on something monstrous and fascinating. The water is clear, and shafts of sunlight streak downward into the blue. From the deep gloom, diving slowly and smoothly, comes the shark. It moves with no apparent effort, sinuous beyond comparison. As it nears the cage, it turns, and its ghastly length passes right in front of him. First the snout, the jaw, slack and smiling, and then the black eye. Hooper tentatively reaches out. It's too far for the strychnine pole. The vinyl flesh is pocked with bullet holes, iron scars, gaffing hooks and strange open wounds that tinge the passing currents with pink. The trailing barrels gong and scratch the keel of the orca above. Brodie and Quint leap back. The shark has vanished into a cloud of rising silt. Hooper, expecting the shark to attack out of that same general direction, braces himself, pole extended through the bars, breathing faster, straining his eyes into the gloom. We see the shark attacking from behind him. The cage is sent careening. Hooper grabs the bars for dear life. The shark has grabbed the steel struts in its brutal jaws, shaking the cage relentlessly from side to side, bending the bars like clothes hangers. Hooper can't turn the point end of the pole around. His body is jammed as far away from the non-rational attacker as possible. Hooper is trapped. The shark withdraws to get some running room and then charges again. The bleeding snout thrusts deeper into the yawing bars, the jaws snapping and twisting, 2 feet from Hooper's torso, the tail thrusting it forward. Hooper drops the strychnine pole between the bars and it tumbles slowly toward rapture death. All the shark needs is one more good thrust before separating Hooper at the waistline. Through frantic bubbles, Hooper fumbles with the overhead hatch cover, kicking it up and out of the cage. The shark backpedals with its tail, but its broad head won't shake loose. Hooper rushes downward after the strychnine pole. As spirals of harmless bullets bead the water, the shark twists free of the cage and arrows downward after Hooper. Hooper nearly recovers the pole. Again, it slips from his frightened grasp and this time disappears into a narrow abyss. Hooper turns and looks up. The great white is lunging at him 20 feet above. One of the barrel ropes snake around the cage rope and pulls taut. Turning to meet the monster, though held back for a moment by a snarled rope, it now surges forward. The orca is listing dangerously aft. The gin pole bent almost to the breaking point. Brodie is in a frenzy trying to haul up the cage. Quint attaches the end of Brodie's rope to a hand winch. The gin pole is splitting. "Let go of it!" The pole gives way, the rope whipping down on the gunwale. The pulling of the tonnage below is tipping the orca, dragging it, but Quint won't give up the winch. Brodie hauls on the rope bare hand. Hooper maneuvering downward, away from the jaws. Suddenly the crazed shark veers upward for the surface. The winch is working faster now, and Quint demonically winds it in. The crushing cage bangs against the hull and then breaks water. Brodie is horrified. The cage is empty. Quint lets out a horrible scream. "He's coming up!" The shark breaks water right beside the orca, rising with a great whooshing noise. It rises vertically, towering overhead, blocking out the sun. The pectoral fin seems to reach forward. The shark, in all its monstrous glory, falls onto the stern of the boat with a shattering crash, narrowly missing Quint and Brodie. It drives the stern underwater. The ocean pours in over the transom. The jaws snap from side to side. Brodie flounders backward away from it. Quint gropes for his rifle and fires. The shark heaves its terrible girth, and Quint flies backward onto his harpoon display. Quint skewered by a number 12 iron. He gulps blood and pitches into the onrushing sea. The orca is tipping backward, sinking stern first, tipping Brodie toward the gaping, thrusting jaws. Deck chairs, irons, spent cartridges, thermos, beer cans, all pour into the vacuum of its open, gagging jaws. It wants Brodie now. Its tail is keeping him into position. Brodie is sliding towards it with the rest of the debris, as the bow raises 30 degrees. He intercepts one of Hooper's compressed air tanks, and just as he and everything else pours toward the whirlpool and into the jaws, Brodie braces himself and shoves the tank at the bottomless pit. They jam between the upper and lower jaws and stick fast. The shark twists backward in the water and turns away. Hooper, rising, is peering around for Brodie and Quint. The shark is spinning in crazed circles, the head thrusts indicating that it can neither dislodge nor swallow the silver tanks. It bites down at 15 tons pressure per square inch, and the tanks explode. A 30-foot geyser of bright red water touches the black sky, spreading everywhere and missing nothing. Clouds of blood, the shark's suspended carcass, another cloud, Quint suspended. From the surface we see the orca sinking with a rumble. Hooper raises with his mask from the water. He kicks toward Brodie. The steel-gray body of the shark is falling away, an apparition evanescing into the darkness, sinking into a slow, graceful spiral, stopped by the bobbing barrels. Brodie is holding on to a cushion, barely afloat in shock. Quint, is he dead? Hooper crosses Brodie's chest with his left arm, keeping him up in the water. Don't talk, we've got a long way. A high shot shows the two tiny, miserable heroes swimming from the debris. We fade out. The end.